Chapter 1822, Curse True God. 3. Yi Qingtang and Little White Tiger discussed for a long time, but failed to ascertain what happened at that final moment tens of thousands of years ago. While they were still debating, Little Heavenly Demon waddled over to Tu Fu's body. With eyes wide with curiosity, it gazed up at the Heavenly Demon who had died all those years ago. Is it okay to let this little kid stare at the dead body of one of its own kind? Yi Qingtang couldn't help feeling worried at Little Heavenly Demon's curious expression. Would the sight of the corpse of this heavenly demon leave a scar on its young, impressionable mind? Please, it is a heavenly demon. Do you think it's some innocent little puppy? Heavenly demons are capable of killing each other, the mere sight of a corpse is nothing to it. Instead of worrying about that, you should worry about whether it might take a bite out of that corpse. Little White Tiger snorted. The image of Little Heavenly Demon gnawing on the body of that true god was still fresh in their minds. Yi Qingtang was speechless. But before Yi Qingtang could say another word, Little Heavenly Demon suddenly reached out one little paw and tapped Tu Fu's leg. That heavenly demon corpse, which had been maintained perfectly in that state for tens of thousands of years, instantly disintegrated with that one tap. The tall, strapping figure collapsed into a heap of black dust which scattered across the ground. Cough cough cough, damn you little punk. Were you really going to eat it? Little White Tiger was coughing so intensely that tears had sprung to its eyes. If not for the fact that it was no match for Little Heavenly Demon, it would have already given it a sound thrashing. Yi Qingtang was astounded by the disintegrated body. Why did it suddenly disintegrate? That demon hand holding the key had been fine when she retrieved the key from its grasp. It even felt rather firm and bouncy, as if it had just been chopped off. But Tu Fu's corpse instantly disintegrated with just one light touch. Who knows? It might have something to do with the totem behind him. It is too dusty here, are you done? Let's go if you are. Little White Tiger was still coughing badly. Yi Qingtang gave one last look at the totem on the wall, memorizing it. She then turned and left the underground palace, with the sniffling Little White Tiger and the dazed Little Heavenly Demon in her arms. Upon returning to the surface, the rain of fire was still going strong. Towering flames spread across the entire earth, but the singing voice of that woman was nowhere to be heard. When is this rain of fire going to stop? Will it go on forever? We will waste away in this place if it doesn't stop. Little White Tiger gazed despondently at the blazing sky. Yi Qingtang took stock of the food in her space ring. As Little Heavenly Demon was now awake, her supplies had been depleting very quickly. While Yi Qingtang could go without food for up to 2 weeks without any problem, Little Heavenly Demon on the other hand. She didn't forget the way Little Heavenly Demon would eye Little White Tiger when it was hungry. When all their food supplies were depleted, Little Heavenly Demon might just kick Little White Tiger out to roast in the rain of fire, so that it could eat it. It's a pity that my Dharma treasures are ineffective here. Otherwise, I can use something to ward off the fiery rain. Yi Qingtang sighed softly. Wait. Having suddenly thought of something, she took out those 2 halves of the key from her space ring. Chapter 1823, Fire Demon. 1. What are they? Little White Tiger looked at the 2 halves of the key. Little White Tiger had seen Yi Qingtang retrieve the 2 halves of the key, but it didn't see the illusion. As a result, it didn't know what these 2 pieces were used for. It thought Yi Qingtang had just kept them on a casual whim. This is the key that the true gods use to imprison the heavenly demons. Since I can't use my Dharma treasures here, I want to see if I can use this holy artifact instead. Yi Qingtang looked at the broken key in her hand. This mystic realm was very dangerous and the power of the cursed true god was very adversarial toward human beings. The rain of fire was too powerful for them. Even if they could stay in the temple forever, how would they be able to destroy the body of the cursed true god and escape from this realm if they did so? Yi Qingtang didn't want to be trapped in this godforsaken place forever. Little White Tiger's eyes lit up. Let's try. Yi Qingtang nodded. With the broken key in hand, she tried walking out of the temple. The ground was covered in raging flames. Hot, bubbling lava flowed down from the sky in an endless torrential explosion of heat. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath and walked into the flames, placing her body under the pouring lava. The moment the flames touched Yi Qingtang, a faint layer of light suddenly spread out from her body. In the blink of an eye, the halo of light engulfed her entire body, forming a holy shield around her. The lava instantly dissipated the moment it made contact with the holy light shield. The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips curved in a slight smile. It seemed this key was rather useful. Thereafter, Yi Qingtang turned back into the temple. She looped each half of the key with a leather band, placing one around her own neck and the other around Little White Tiger's. She then picked up Little Heavenly Demon. Little White Tiger glanced at the key hanging around its neck with an incredulous expression. "Why do I feel like this thing is similar to a dog collar?" Yi Qingtang was speechless. What kind of comparison was that? Do you want to be a dog? Of course not. Little White Tiger was affronted. It was a white tiger. Why the hell would it want to be a dog? Then just rein in your wild imagination. It could go ahead and imagine being a dog if it wanted to. Why did it have to include her in the comparison? Stupid tiger. Little White Tiger opened its mouth to retort, but in the end, it shut its jaws submissively. With the holy artifact protecting them, Yi Qingtang and Little White Tiger stepped into the rain of fire. They breathed a huge sigh of relief when no harm came to them. Only the heavens would know how long this fiery rain would last. With this key, they didn't have to worry about being trapped here. Relying on the key's protection, they could finally weave through the rain of fire. Walking amongst the raging flames, Yi Qingtang saw many charred black bodies of all sorts of monsters. The smell of roasted meat wafted over, and Little Heavenly Demon could not stop the drool coming out of his mouth. It was salivating uncontrollably. Noticing its pitiful face, Yi Qingtang reached out to carve off some roasted monster meat to feed it. At least this saved Yi Qingtang the hassle of hunting and cooking beasts. It was really very convenient. However, Yi Qingtang didn't dare to linger too long in this area. Although the key was protecting them, who knew what other strange things would happen to her again. Chapter 1824, Fire Demon, 2. As they made their way through, Yi Qingtang tried her best to remember all that she saw in the illusion. She had seen the death of the cursed true god in the illusion. If she was right, that place should be the cemetery of the true gods. So it was likely that the body of the cursed true god should be there. As long as she followed the route she saw in the illusion, she should be able to find it. The key not only protected her from the flames and lava, it also relieved Yi Qingtang from the scorching heat. In comparison to before, her journey was much more comfortable now. But after traveling for half a day, Yi Qingtang suddenly noticed something strange about the flames raging above the ground. The blazing fires were suddenly swaying intensely, as if strong winds were rushing through and sucking in the flames and lava into numerous spiraling fire dragons. What's going on? Little White Tiger watched the strange scene with incredulous eyes. Yi Qingtang was also shocked. In the blink of an eye, the strong winds died down and those flames and lava had been merged together into several 3-meter-tall fire monsters. Are those fire demons? Little White Tiger widened its eyes in disbelief at the fire demons. It felt like its mind was exploding. How can there be fire demons here? Yi Qingtang was stunned. Fire demons were the servants of the heavenly demons and created by their power. In moments, hundreds of fire demons had emerged from the intense flames. The fire demons howled like wild beasts the moment they were formed. In the next second, they seemed to detect the presence of life around them, heading straight in the direction of Yi Qingtang and Little White Tiger. Fire demons are the servants of heavenly demons. Get Little Heavenly Demon to control them. Even under such dire circumstances, Little White Tiger managed to keep its wits about it. Yi Qingtang immediately looked down at Little Heavenly Demon in her arms. The little fellow was munching contentedly on a piece of meat. Yi Qingtang quickly snatched the piece of meat away from it. Little heavenly demon was stunned. Its eyes immediately filled with tears as it stared after its beloved meat. It looked as if it was being bullied. Yi Qingtang's heart softened. But looking at the large number of fire demons, she steeled her resolve. Make them stop and I will give you back this meat. Little heavenly demon gazed at Yi Qingtang in confusion. Anguished, it stared at the piece of meat with tear-filled eyes, before turning to look at the group of fire demons. Pouting, it suddenly roared at the bunch of fire demons. Hearing that roar, those charging fire demons came to a sudden stop. They looked like they had been nailed to the ground, swaying side to side. Thank goodness. Yi Qingtang heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to hand the meat back to little heavenly demon, she suddenly saw that there were 3 exceptionally large fire demons who were not under little heavenly demon's control. They continued to charge toward them from the back of the group, trampling over the rest of the immobile fire demons. What's happening? Yi Qingtang was bewildered. Weren't they the servants of the heavenly demons? Could it because little heavenly demon was too young and so they refused to obey? Run! Those 3 are mutant fire demons. Little heavenly demon is too young and can't control them. When he saw those 3 gigantic fire demons, little white tiger's scalp went numb and its entire body tensed. Not daring to hesitate any longer, Yi Qingtang picked up little heavenly demon and little white tiger, escaping as quickly as she could. Chapter 1825, Fire Demon, 3. No matter how quickly she tried to escape, the fire demons faster. Even at 5 meters tall, they quickly caught up with Yi Qingtang and little white tiger. Quick, throw this little rascal over. Seeing the 3 mutant fire demons right on their tails, little white tiger rushed towards Yi Qingtang and swiped little heavenly demon from her arms with his mouth. Swinging its head hard, it threw little heavenly demon towards the 3 mutant fire demons. Yi Qingtang was completely dumbstruck. She knew that little white tiger and little heavenly demon didn't always see eye to eye, but to throw it over to distract their pursuers, the 3 fire demons dodged little heavenly demon as though it wasn't there at all and continued chasing after Yi Qingtang and the little white tiger. Little white tiger was left speechless. What had just happened? Are you an idiot? Why would the fire demons attack little heavenly demon of their own accord? Yi Qingtang was completely stupefied at what the little white tiger had just done. I just wanted to make that little rascal useful. How would I know that it's so stupid it didn't even know to attack those 3? Little white tiger groused. That little guy's greatest use right now is its roar. But it obviously has no effect on the 3 mutant fire demons, so what did you throw it over for? With that, Yi Qingtang smacked little white tiger on the head. It was lucky that the 3 mutant fire demons had not attacked little heavenly demon or Yi Qingtang would have killed him. How could he betray his own team like this? But she had no time to argue with little white tiger right now. Looking at the fire demons rapidly approaching them, she could only flee as fast as she could. Seeing the fleeing figures, the 3 mutant fire demons howled. 3 huge pillars of flames shot out from their mouths straight towards Yi Qingtang and little white tiger. Looking at the approaching flames, Yi Qingtang knew that she had no way of avoiding it. Having no choice, she grabbed little white tiger, tucking him safely in her chest, and released her energy. A huge wall of black flames appeared behind her and met with the 3 huge pillars of flames. Bang! A huge explosion reverberated through the air as the flames of the fire demons and Yi Qingtang's black flames collided with sparks flying all over. Even though Yi Qingtang had the broken piece of the key to protect her body, she could still feel her temperature rising rapidly. The mutant fire demon's flames were gradually suppressing her black flames. It was clear they were determined to burn her and little white tiger to death. As the threat of death got closer to them, Yi Qingtang gritted her teeth and reached for the power of the deity ocean within her. In the blink of an eye, little white tiger and her entered the twisted space. But the moment Yi Qingtang activated the deity ocean, the power sleeping within her all this while suddenly awoke. In the next second, Yi Qingtang felt sudden heat enveloping her whole body. The heat was quickly swallowed by her black flames, and her black flames quickly dissolved into a scattering of gold flakes. The moment the black flame transformed, the power of the black flame increased greatly and changed when it met the fire demon's flames. The black flame which had been suppressed all this time seemed to be absorbing the fire demon's flames and becoming more powerful. Who knew that the black flames could devour the fire demon's flames? Yi Qingtang couldn't believe her eyes. It was at the moment that she realized where the warmth within her was coming from. What's that? It was changing to the power of the devouring bloodline. Chapter 1826, Unexpected Surprise. 1. Yi Qingtang had never been able to control the devouring bloodline. Who would have expected it to merge with her black flames? It couldn't be. Was this because of the deity ocean? But Yi Qingtang had no time to spend thinking about this. She looked at her black flames devouring the fire demons, feeling herself getting stronger as the demons were slowly consumed. Even though her strength was not growing fast, it was already considered a big leap for a heavenly venerate. This devouring effect not only allowed her to escape from danger but also turned the fire demon's fire into something that she could absorb, increasing her own strength with comparative ease. Yi Qingtang celebrated in her heart but did not dare let down her guard yet. As her black flames devoured the fire demon's fire, she saw the three mutant fire demon gradually shrink. The fire demons rely on the fire as their life force. You're depriving them of their power as you absorb their fire and are bleeding them dry. Now that the situation was looking more hopeful, little white tiger perked up and roared loudly. Yi Qingtang's heart lifted as an idea popped into her head. Even though she couldn't hope to defeat the three mutant fire demons, it would still be good for her to let her black flames slowly sap away their energy. But in the blink of an eye, the 5-meter fire demons had shrunk down to only 3 meters in height. The flames they were spitting out of their mouths stopped suddenly as well. Have they used up all their power? Yi Qingtang's heart was overjoyed. But before she could even express her joy, she noticed the 3 mutant fire demons absorbing the flames that were scorching the earth and falling from the sky. The fire demon absorbed the flames rapidly and grew to twice their height right in front of their eyes. Like that, they grew back to 5 meters in a split second. Yi Qingtang, what the hell was that? The tiny sliver of hope she had just discovered was smashed into smithereens. Originally she had intended to finish off the 3 mutant fire demons with her black flames but had never thought that they would absorb the flames around themselves and grow back to their original size. The hope in her turned to despair as she looked at the flames covering the earth and the fire raining down on them. How long was it going to take to devour all of this? As long as the rain of fire continued, the 3 mutant fire demons would be able to replenish their energy infinitely. Although her black flames had gained the ability to devour her enemies, she was going to die if she didn't pay heed to the situation. Even though she wanted to curse this land 1,000 times, the only thing she could do now was look out for herself. It was already considered lucky that she got stronger as the black flames devoured everything, or she would have already been dead. However, just as Yi Qingtang was about to lose all hope, the red clouds in the sky dispersed and the rain of fire slowly subsided. The cursed true God's song has already stopped for some time now, so the fire rain should be diminishing. We should use this opportunity to destroy them. Little white tiger roared as it jumped out of Yi Qingtang's arms. With its mane still bald and patchy in some areas, it sprayed white flames at the 3 mutant fire demons. Chapter 1827, Unexpected Surprise. 2. But the white flames were consumed by the fire demons the moment they touched them, and the demons seemed to grow bigger as well. What in the world? Little white tiger was speechless. Are you sure you're not a spy sent by them? Yi Qingtang hissed as she glared at little white tiger. The little white tiger grimaced and hung its head in remorse. Accident? It was an accident. How was it supposed to know that the fire demon was going to swallow its flames? Shoo! With that, Yi Qingtang kicked little white tiger to one side. As long as the rain of fire stopped, the flames around them wouldn't be able to be sustained as well. It was only then that she would have an opportunity to kill the fire demons. Before long, the 3 mutant fire demons shrank as they lost their source of fire and their flames were consumed rapidly by Yi Qingtang. They had noticed this as well, and suddenly stopped their barrage of flame attacks and rushed towards Yi Qingtang in a frenzy. Yi Qingtang dared not go close to them and swiftly flew upwards as the fire demons lunged for her. Even as she flew upwards, the black flames in her hands continued their attack on them. The black flames with glowing gold lights showed no signs of being engulfed as it hit the fire demons and swallowed their flames, devouring their power and sapping away at their strength. As the fire demons were devoured by her, Yi Qingtang felt her power grow. Yi Qingtang flew further and further from them as her black flames continued drawing the power from the fire demons. It was a long ordeal, but as time passed, the 5-meter-tall fire demons were slowly whittled down to about 2 meters. Likewise, the flames around them had died down greatly as well. Yi Qingtang was about to use this opportunity to absorb them completely when she suddenly realized something. There were human-like figures among the fading flames. Were those humans in the fire demons' bodies? Yi Qingtang was stunned and quickly controlled the black flames around the fire demons. It was only after absorbing all of the flames in the fire demons that Yi Qingtang was able to see them clearly. There were 3 people in the 3 mutant fire demons. Furthermore, Yi Qingtang recognized all 3 of them. She quickly withdrew her black flames and landed beside the 3 humans. The 3 of them who had their eyes tightly shut, collapsed right in front of Yi Qingtang. Their clothes had been completely scorched by the flames of the fire demons and they were left with not an inch of clothing on their bodies. Yi Qingtang's gaze swept across the 3 of them. All 3 of them had entered the mystic realm with Yi Qingtang. Bailey Shi, Mu Feirua and Jiang Xiaobai. Her lips began to twitch as she looked at them. They had absolutely nothing covering them and everything that shouldn't be seen was out in the open. Yi Qingtang could see every part of them clearly. Despite looking slender and graceful, Bailey Shi was actually pretty muscular. As for Mu Feirua, flat-chested with clear abdominal muscles. Mu Feirua was male. A man. But the one who surprised Yi Qingtang the most was Jiang Xiaobai. Ha! She was going to kill this cross-dressing guy. What did he say about being underdeveloped? It was all lies. Yi Qingtang was immediately assaulted by the sight in front of her. The 2 girls and 1 man she had thought was with her had suddenly turned into 3 men right in front of her eyes. Chapter 1828, Unexpected Surprise. 3. Thinking about how the weak and soft Jiang Xiaobai who was with her all the time was an actual man, Yi Qingtang wanted to kill him. Taking in a deep breath, Yi Qingtang forcefully suppressed the murderous intent in her heart. Jiang Xiaobai, this little brat. How long had he deceived her? As for Mu Feirua, Yi Qingtang had always thought that Mu Feirua was extremely tall, almost as tall as Bailey Shi and the others, but had always thought that she was just a taller girl. Unexpectedly, he was also a crossdresser. Was the world full of crossdressers? At the thought of Jiang Yisheng worshipping Mu Feirua like he was a goddess and constantly proclaiming his love for her, Yi Qingtang wanted to laugh. If Jiang Yisheng knew that his goddess was a man, could he still love her? Jiang Xiaobai and the other 2 seemed to be in a stupor and didn't wake up even after Yi Qingtang called them a few times. Yi Qingtang was very curious about how the 3 of them had turned into the mutant fire demons. However, she breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that they were still alive. Other than the fact that they were in a stupor, they didn't seem to have any other injuries on them. Their breathing was even and their lives didn't seem to be in any danger. It was a miracle that she had been able to find her partners in this strange mystic realm. As for their gender, she had no energy to think about that now. Yi Qingtang took out some clothes from her space ring and threw them on the 3 people on the ground. She couldn't very well leave them here and could only get little white tiger to grow bigger and carry them along as they continued on their journey forward. Yi Qingtang also picked up little heavenly demon, which had been thrown out by little white tiger along the way. Having been discarded so pitifully, little heavenly demon's face was full of grievance as it nestled in Yi Qingtang's arms and whimpered. What did it do to deserve being thrown out like discarded rubbish? Yi Qingtang looked at little heavenly demon comfortingly before turning to look at the three unconscious men. Gosh, she was exhausted. Even though she wasn't on particularly good terms with Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua, they had come into this mystic realm together and given her personality, Yi Qingtang couldn't just leave them there to die. This mystic realm was filled with unknown dangers. Yi Qingtang had seen Sang Feiyu die along with the others and Qingtang reduced to a monster's plaything, and there was still Qiu Ci whom she had no idea was dead or alive. Although Yi Qingtang didn't know Qiu Ci's whereabouts, she couldn't just leave Bailey Shi and the other two now that she had seen them. The three of them were already the strongest among the 10, which was the only reason they had survived this long. If not for that, they would already have died or become the playthings of the monsters here. The more she thought about it, the more her brain started to hurt. A sigh came out of her lips. To think that out of the original 10 who had entered the mystic dimension, only 4 of them were left. These fire demons are different from the ones I remember. 3 people were at its base. I was thinking that they wouldn't have been so easy to deal with if they had been real fire demons. Little white tiger shook itself and stabilized the 3 people on its back. The fire demons were servants of the heavenly demons and were not as strong as them, but even then they were at least at the emperor level. There was no way Yi Qingtang could have devoured them so easily. Little white tiger had a feeling that these fire demons were just empty shells. If it had been a real fire demon controlled by the heavenly demons, there was no way they would have been a match for it, even if it had been a mutant type. You sound pretty regretful. Yi Qingtang raised her eyebrows slightly. No, you must have heard wrongly, little white tiger said as it quickly shook its head. Chapter 1829, Cemetery of the True Gods, 1, Yi Qingtang gave little white tiger a look, and didn't bother continuing the conversation. The rain of fire and flames covering the earth had all vanished following the dispersion of the fire demons, and the intense heat that had scorched into the ground was the only thing left of the flames. The key's protection was the only reason they weren't being roasted by the heat as they walked upon the smoldering ground. There was even more magma covering the ground now, dyeing the entire earth a pulsing, flaming red. The dark red magma spread across the ground like the huge web of a spider. As they ventured forward, little white tiger scanned the endless earth as it followed behind Yi Qingtang with the 3 people on its back. How much further is it to the cemetery of the true gods? If we meet with another incarnation of the cursed true god before we get there, we won't even have a place to hide. There were still the corpses of the true gods around them previously, but the further they went the more barren the land became. The entire earth had been scorched black by the flames from the sky. Countless bodies of the monsters lay on the ground. Once so huge they were towering in the sky above them, they had now been reduced to ashes which scattered around them as the wind blew. Yi Qingtang had already realized upon entering the scorched hot lands that there were virtually no live forms here at all. She had understood why after seeing the intensity of the flames herself. How was it possible for anything to even survive among the magma? They had probably all become spirits to be controlled like the fire demons. While it was barren where they were, it was also safer compared to before. Yi Qingtang just had to keep an eye out for the cursed true god. On the other hand, little heavenly demon looked extremely pitiful. Unable to hunt and curb its increasing hunger, it could only nestle in Yi Qingtang's arms and chew on the portions of dried meat. Now that it had a taste of the divine flavors of fresh meat when scorched under Yi Qingtang's black fire, the dried meat obviously couldn't satisfy it after it at all. Its starving eyes kept drifting over to little white tiger and the 3 people on its back, so hungry it was practically salivating. All it wanted was one bite. Just one bite. Yi Qingtang grimaced when saw what the little heavenly demon was looking at. How could she not understand the insatiable look of starvation in its eyes? Even though she wasn't close to Bailey Shi and Muferua, there was no way she could roast them and offer them to little heavenly demon just to satisfy its hunger. So she could only hug the little heavenly demon tightly so it couldn't pounce on them. Day after day went by. Days had morphed into months until Yi Qingtang had no idea how long she had been walking in the scorched hot lands. The heat around them remained just as intense, as though it was trying to suck every drop of fluid from their body. There wasn't a drop of water or a morsel of food here, and she hadn't seen a single living thing the entire time. It would have been difficult for them to even survive if Yi Qingtang hadn't stored food and water with her back from when she was in the Valley of Demons. Just as Yi Qingtang was about to faint from the intense heat, a cool breeze blew towards them. It dissipated the heat around Yi Qingtang immediately, clearing her fuzzy mind in an instant. Raising her head subconsciously, she looked towards the direction of the wind. But she was stunned by the sight that greeted her. Just a few hundred meters away, countless skeletons reached towards the sky. With the bones stacked against each other, it formed a creepy embattlement that sent a shiver up their spine. Chapter 1830. Cemetery of the True Gods. 2. Tons of skeletons stacked above each other. They looked to be the scattered remains from different beings and were decomposed into a graveyard of muted ash gray. The wind blew through the gaps of those remains. Before Yi Qingtang even got closer, she could sense an intense aura of death coming from the insides of the skeleton wall. She couldn't exactly explain it. The wind wasn't piercingly cold, it felt just right to permeate through her clothes and skin, spreading all over her body. Is this the cemetery of the true gods? Yi Qingtang lifted her head to look at the almost 20-meter-tall wall of skeletons. It was spectacular, blocking the path in front of her. Did you see it in your illusion too? Little White Tiger looked at the wall of skeletons in front and noticed that the dark aura was completely different from the aura exuded by the undead clan. Though it was deadly silent, they could somehow hear countless dead souls wailing. It was more than just sounds they could hear with their ears, the sounds could somehow permeate through to their soul. Yi Qingtang shook her head. She only saw the cemetery of the true gods descending here in the illusion. Right after that, the cursed true god left this place and she had no idea about how the cemetery of the true gods had turned out after that. Is the cursed true god's remains behind this wall of skeletons? Little White Tiger ventured. Yi Qingtang wasn't certain either and walked over to the wall of skeletons. Suddenly, a gust of wind permeated through the wall and blew her hair around. It hit her on the cheeks just like hailstones. It felt somewhat creepy. But she wouldn't step back even if she could sense the deadly aura. According to her memories in the illusion, the cursed true god had descended somewhere close to this wall of skeletons. The only way to leave this place would be to destroy the bones of the cursed true god. At that exact moment, Yi Qingtang leaped and flew behind the wall of skeletons. Little White Tiger also followed her. The moment Yi Qingtang looked down to see what was behind the wall, her eyes widened in shock. All she could see were endless dead bodies all scattered across the ground. Their faces were an ash gray, these humans seemed to be consumed by the ground. Their bodies were buried in the ground from the neck down, and only their heads were exposed. Their necks seemed to have been broken. Behind the wall of skeletons was countless humans buried under the ground. This is like purgatory, even Little White Tiger couldn't help but shiver when it saw the entire ground buried with humans. Yi Qingtang secretly took a deep breath to steady her pounding heart before she slowly lifted her eyes. Standing right in the center was a 100-meter-tall feminine figure. The cursed true god. The moment Yi Qingtang saw the figure, it overlapped with the cursed true god she saw in the illusion. In the illusion, the cursed true god had been a more normal height. But this cursed true god in front of her seemed to be an expanded version. She stood tall and upright above the remains of the humans. With closed eyes and crossed arms, her skin wasn't of any discernible color at all. Her body was also ash gray, just like a stone figure. In the illusion, Yi Qingtang saw with her own eyes that the cursed true god had collapsed in a puddle of blood. That scene was completely different from this scene in front of her eyes now. Chapter 1831, Cemetery of the True Gods, 3. The true god, who had once been so beautiful that everything else seemed to fade in comparison, had now lost all its color and stood dully in the midst of this dreadful place. The cursed true god had been long gone, and the only thing left of it was its hatred, which filled the skies. Surrounded by countless corpses, the cursed true god looked like a demon born from the depths of hell. As she took in her surroundings, Yi Qingtang breathed in silently. The cursed true god in front of her looked nothing like it used to. They would never have entered this place if not for the appearance of the deity ocean. Now the only way they could leave this mystic realm was to destroy the bones of the cursed true god. Yi Qingtang flew straight at the bones of the cursed true god, but as she reached the wall of bones, something seemed to hit her hard and she fell from the sky. With a crash, she landed on a pile of human skeletons. Before she could get up, Little White Tiger fell from the sky as well. The power of the curse is too strong here. There's no way we can fly above the void. Little White Tiger got up hastily. A frown appeared on Yi Qingtang's face. The three people on Little White Tiger's back had tumbled down when it fell, but the three of them still showed no signs of waking up and only fell stiffly onto the ground. Yi Qingtang stood up and was about to put them back on Little White Tiger's back when a deep, low breath rumbled throughout the cemetery of the true gods. What's that sound? Yi Qingtang paused and swept her eyes around warily. As her gaze landed on the cursed true god, its tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. What? Yi Qingtang was stunned. Almost at the same time that the cursed true god's eyes opened, deafening howls rang through the deathly quiet cemetery of the true gods. The humans embedded in their ground with only half their bodies showing, suddenly opened their eyes, which glowed a vivid red. They opened their bloody mouths and howled endlessly. What's happening? Are these people not dead? Little White Tiger looked at the reanimated bodies under his feet as a shiver ran down its spine. The dead people stared on and they howled like haunted ghouls. Their mud-stained hands clawed upwards maniacally. Save me, let me die, someone, save me. Sorrowful cries filled the cemetery of the true gods. The hairs on the Little White Tiger's back all stood on their ends as the dead people clawed upwards desperately, grabbing hold of its legs. Caught in the middle of the bodies, Yi Qingtang was dragged to the ground by gray hands as well. These creatures were no longer humans. Their red, glowing eyes stared blankly forward as they reached out relentlessly, trying to grab hold of anything alive. They were desperately trying to pull Yi Qingtang and Little White Tiger down with them, as if wanting them to become a part of the cemetery of the true gods with them. Yi Qingtang lifted her hands and dark flames shot out. The ashy hands retracted hastily as her flames touched them. Taking the opportunity to free herself, Yi Qingtang extricated herself from their clutches. But before she could even catch her breath, she saw Jiang Xiaobai, who had fallen off Little White Tiger's back, being dragged into the ground by the endless sea of arms. Chapter 1832, Neither Dead Nor Alive, 1. When Yi Qingtang saw Jiang Xiaobai being dragged into the ground by those hands, she panicked and quickly shot her black flames towards it. The undead were all fearful of the black flames and retreated quickly. Without hesitating for another second, Yi Qingtang flew straight to Jiang Xiaobai and scooped him up as she shot black flames at Little White Tiger to help it out of its predicament. She threw Jiang Xiaobai onto its back. Take care of them. Yi Qingtang breathed a sigh of relief when she saw Jiang Xiaobai land safely on Little White Tiger's back. She quickly darted to Mu Feirua and Bai Li Shi, saving them as well. Hot. I'm going to die to this heat. The undead burnt by the black flames wailed in pain. Tears of blood flowed from their once empty eyes. Under the curse of the cursed true god, the people trapped here would never die. They would never find peace even though they were already in bits and pieces. As she looked at the sea of crying faces, Yi Qingtang couldn't help but feel a strong sense of revulsion at all the evil in this mystic realm. The true God had hated the primordial humans for their betrayal and cursed them with this immortality, turning this entire place into a living hell. It was at this moment that Yi Qingtang understood why those powerful men with only their head left had refused to lead her to the cemetery of the true gods. They had probably already seen all of this. This was a nightmare no one would want to experience twice. But she had no time for second thoughts as the undead covering the ground reached out at them relentlessly, wanting to drag them into the ground. Yi Qingtang could only keep shooting her flames at them, making them retreat. The only one who was spared was little heavenly demon. The undead seemed to fear its presence and all shrank away from it whenever it passed by. Noticing this, Yi Qingtang immediately scooped little heavenly demon into her arms before leaping and landing on little white tiger's back. The undead didn't dare reach out towards them as little heavenly demon breathed down at them. They could only glare at them with their glowing red eyes. How many bodies are there exactly? Little white tiger said as it looked at the crowded sea of undead below them. Some of their heads had already been twisted by the arms of the other people, leaving only a thin layer of skin hanging on the bones. But even in this state, they were unable to die. Even as their heads were smashed by the other undead and their brain matter was smattered all over the ground, their eyes remained open as they howled miserably. It was a perversely morbid scene that gave them the chills. They were better off dead than alive and stuck in this limbo between the two realms. As long as the bones of the cursed true God were still around, they ever be able to escape their state of being neither alive nor dead. Yi Qingtang suddenly heard a familiar sound. Her head snapped towards it, scanning the bodies for something familiar. Finally she noticed someone familiar among the sea of faces. Zhan Rao. Zhan Rao, who had gone missing earlier, was now buried in the sea of undead. Compared to the other undead, his face didn't look as gray, but it was pale and bloodless. However, his eyes were surrounded by a red glow as the light from his eyes slowly faded. One of his arms was missing as well and he seemed to be in a trance. Chapter 1833, Neither Dead Nor Alive, 2, Yi Qingtang's heart quivered. She had never expected to see Zhan Rao here. Almost subconsciously, she propelled herself with the black flames to Zhan Rao's side. "I'll take you along." A frown appeared on her face as she focused. Grabbing hold of Zhan Rao's shoulders, she tried to pull him out. Zhan Rao's face remained in a trance as he continued mumbling Yi Qingtang's name. Yi Qingtang used all the energy in her body but was only able to drag him up a little. But what lay beneath his body made her blood run cold. Underneath him was a huge, wriggling mouth and from it were a myriad of tentacles that had already infiltrated Zhan Rao's lower half. It was then that Yi Qingtang realized that his lower half had already been fully invaded by those tentacles. Blood gushed from his wounds straight into the huge mouth as it continued chewing on Zhan Rao. Arg! The pain from her pulling made Zhan Rao cry out in agony. The immense pain seemed to clear Zhan Rao's mind. The red glow in his eyes gradually faded as he looked at Yi Qingtang in shock and horror. He knocked Yi Qingtang's hands away. Dragging himself up on the other dead bodies with the tentacles trailing behind him in his abdomen, he shouted at her. "Leave. You need to go now. Leave me, I can't be saved." Yi Qingtang's frowned. Even though she had already prepared for the worst, still. Zhan Rao grabbed hold of an undead's head to keep the huge mouth from dragging him back. "Yi Qingtang, thank you. I never thought that you would have wanted to save me, but it's too late." After Zhan Rao was dispersed with the others, he came into contact with an extremely powerful monster. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't defeat it and was brought here. This was truly a living hell. There was no land under the undead at all, only huge, bottomless, gaping mouths full of tentacles. Once someone was caught in the tentacles and dragged into the mouth, the parts below their chest would be chewed up quickly. Zhan Rao was only left with everything above his waist intact. anything below that had long been chewed into mincemeat and swallowed up by the bottomless gaping maws. With the continuous injuries that they were taking, as well as the relentless infiltration of the tentacles, their consciousness would soon be wiped out, leaving them an empty shell of an undead. Jean Rao's consciousness had already faded to almost nothing. If not for the fact that he had met with someone familiar, he would probably not have regained the last part of his consciousness. Go, please go now. Jean Rao knew that he didn't have long to live. The once elegant young man had been reduced to something neither dead nor alive, with his consciousness almost gone. He knew that there was no way he was going to survive this and didn't want Yi Qingtang and the rest to suffer the same fate as him. But before he could finish what he wanted to say, the tentacles piercing through him dragged him back into the huge mouth. Yi Qingtang barely had time to grab hold of his arm, as he slipped right out of her grasp. Chapter 1834, Neither Dead Nor Alive, 2, but as though they had sensed something amiss, the tentacles dragged Jean Rao straight into the depths of the huge mouth. Go now. Jean Rao only had time to roar out one last time before being swallowed whole. He didn't want to drag Yi Qingtang down and shouted at her to let him go. In the blink of an eye, he vanished. Yi Qingtang looked at the shut lips, which were quickly covered by the other undead. The only thing left in her mind was his last screams. The undead began reaching for her again. Pent-up emotions welled up, bursting to the surface as Yi Qingtang watched her comrade being swallowed whole. A huge wave of black flames surrounded her, and the undead drew back, crawling silently on the floor, afraid of the flames. You need to think of a way to destroy the cursed true god's bones soon, or we're going to die here, said Little White Tiger. This entire place was strange. Jean Rao's last words conveyed very clearly the terrifying nature underlying this place. Under their feet were countless huge mouths waiting to devour them. If one wasn't careful, they would be dragged into those gaping teeth by an army of tentacles. Yi Qingtang breathed in deeply and jumped onto Little White Tiger's back. Then they rushed towards the cursed true god. But just as they were nearing the cursed true god, the sea of undead below them shook and a huge hill suddenly erupted in front of it. What's happening? Little White Tiger was forced to a stop. The moment it stopped, a wave of demonic aura shot out from the hill towards the sky. The undead on the hill were turned to dust in an instant. From the surge of the demonic aura, a tall, black shadow appeared in front of them. The black shadow was at least 10 meters tall and was covered in dark red flames with black armor around it. It stood quietly in front of the bones of the cursed true god, holding the blazing flame sword. Just like a guardian preventing them from approaching the cursed true god. What is that? What strong demonic aura? The Little White Tiger's eyes widened. The black-armored shadow was completed and shrouded with an intense, demonic aura. But what shocked Little White Tiger most was that the demonic aura on this shadow was in no way inferior to that on Little Heavenly Demon. Don't tell me, is this a heavenly demon? What kind of joke was this? Little White Tiger was about to go mad. Why would there be a heavenly demon in the cemetery of the true gods? Did you just say it's a heavenly demon? Yi Qingtang was shocked as well. What was going on? Look carefully at the black armor on it. Yi Qingtang looked closer and realized that there were red totems on the black armor surrounded by dark red flames. They looked really familiar. Is that the totem of the heavenly demons? Little White Tiger nodded. This is an armor that only the heavenly demons can use. But, why would there be one here? Yi Qingtang was confused as well. There was no change at all to the bones of the cursed true god even when the heavenly demon appeared. Why on earth had a heavenly demon appeared here? It was standing protectively in front of the cursed true god's bones, seemingly ready to guard it with its life. Chapter 1835, Black Armor, 1. With the sudden appearance of the armored heavenly demon, Yi Qingtang fixed her eyes on the dark figure, scanning the surroundings to prepare herself in case she needed to escape. But even after a while, the armored heavenly demon didn't make a move. He just stood there in front of the remains of the cursed true god, not moving an inch, just like a statue. Is this fellow a statue? Little White Tiger sniffed at the armored heavenly demon. Other than the demonic aura, it couldn't sense any life from it. This thing was like a deadly creature who only had an endless demonic aura. Yi Qingtang couldn't help but feel suspicious as she looked at the armored heavenly demon that wasn't moving at all. She didn't move abruptly, but rather, got Little White Tiger to slowly advance. Right when Little White Tiger took a step forward, the armored heavenly demon suddenly moved. He raised the blazing flame sword and struck towards Little White Tiger. Whoosh! Little White Tiger leaped up in an instant. The moment the blazing flame sword hit the ground filled with the undead, it caused a huge crack right in the middle. The intense aura from the sword resulted in a charred mess of destruction in its wake. The undead as well as the huge crack were charred black. Little White Tiger secretly swallowed its saliva as it looked at the huge crack that passed through the entire cemetery of the true gods. Holy! If the sword were to land on Little White Tiger instead, its body would definitely split into two halves. Just as Little White Tiger jumped away, the armored heavenly demon suddenly stopped attacking and just held the sword tightly, standing there, not continuing its attack at all. What's going on? Why isn't he coming for us? This was Little White Tiger's first time witnessing such a situation. How could there be such a well-behaved heavenly demon? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes, scanning the armored heavenly demon, and when her eyes landed on the section where the eyes would have been, she sensed something suspicious. The purpose of the armor was to provide full protection, only revealing a pair of eyes. However, when she studied the eye section, there weren't any signs of eyes in there at all. It was pitch dark, but she could somehow sense two balls of fire in there. Why did you say that he's just like a statue just now? Yi Qingtang asked Little White Tiger. Though he has a strong demonic aura, I can't sense any life from it at all. Even if he's a heavenly demon, he surely would have some signs of life, Little White Tiger explained. Yi Qingtang was suddenly hit by an idea. Maybe. I think that you might be wrong. What do you mean? This set of armor indeed belongs to a heavenly demon, but it could very well just be a set of armor, Yi Qingtang said. What do you mean? Little White Tiger repeated. It was perplexed. I sensed something strange earlier when he was attacking us. When he first appeared out of nowhere, he didn't attack immediately. It was us who triggered his senses and made him feel wary. When you took one step forward, he suddenly attacked, but when you got away, he stopped moving. Do you get what I mean? Yi Qingtang explained her thoughts. Little White Tiger was not a fool. After hearing Yi Qingtang's explanation, its eyes lit up. So you're saying that he's just a set of armor that bears the power of the heavenly demon? That should be it, Yi Qingtang answered. Chapter 1836, Black Armor, 2, but even if it's just a set of armor, it must have been sealed with the heavenly demon's powers. If not, you wouldn't have mistaken it for the heavenly demon at the start. Yi Qingtang was certain about it. With the armor having the heavenly demon's powers, they wouldn't be able to fight against it. But the thing Yi Qingtang was most curious about was why the armor was even stationed here. Until she knew more, she didn't dare act abruptly and could only take Little White Tiger with her and retreat to a safe place. The entire area struck by the armor had become a scene of charred devastation. For the moment, Yi Qingtang decided to rest for a moment since she did not need to worry as much about the disturbance from the live grave of the undead. Somehow, it seemed that the black suit of armor could sense that Yi Qingtang hadn't left the vicinity. It stood right in front of the cursed true god, holding the sword tightly with both hands, but it didn't seem to have any intention of attacking. Over the next few days, Yi Qingtang continued to observe it. If she wasn't wrong, the dark armor was protecting the cursed true god's remains and would attack anyone who came close to the cursed true god. That meant that as long as they didn't go too close to the cursed true god, the armor wouldn't attack them. Knowing this, Yi Qingtang heaved a sigh of relief. But this gave rise to another problem for Yi Qingtang. If they couldn't get close to the cursed true god, they won't be able to destroy the remains, and this would continue as a vicious cycle. The armor would stand nothing to lose. But it wasn't the same case for her. I have an idea. Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke up after carefully thinking about it for some time. Little White Tiger could sense something different in Yi Qingtang's eyes, and that expression on her face sent cold chills down its spine. I don't agree. Yi Qingtang was speechless. I haven't even said what it is yet, how can you just disagree already? Little White Tiger looked at her warily. I don't need you to explain yourself, I can already see that sly look on your face. I'm never going to agree no matter what you say. Just give up now. Don't be like that. Do you really want to stay in this hellish place forever? As if I haven't experienced it before, Little White Tiger muttered. Actually, it had stayed in the mystic realm for quite some time previously. You're really against it? Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. Oh. An ominous feeling made its hair stand on end as it continued to eye Yi Qingtang. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang's eyes crinkled into a smile as she pinched Little Heavenly Demon's cheeks cheekily. Are you hungry? Shall I help you roast a tiger? Once Little Heavenly Demon heard Yi Qingtang's words, a line of drool appeared at the corner of its mouth. Eager eyes darted immediately to Little White Tiger in hopeful expectation. What? How could she? Little White Tiger was instantly furious. You're too much. Don't worry so much, I'm just discussing it with you. I can see that the armor is not that intelligent. It only acts according to its instincts. You can just find a time to direct it away and I can work on destroying the cursed true god's remains, Yi Qingtang explained. No. There's absolutely no way I'm doing this. Little White Tiger threw a glance at the terrifying black armor and shook its head, with no intention of stopping at all. No meant no. Even if the armor did not have consciousness nor a physical body, its powers should be around that of the heavenly demon. Even 10 little white tigers wouldn't be enough to win. I'm not asking you to fight with him, you're only in charge of distracting him, Yi Qingtang continued to coax. Unless the black armor was directed away, they would never be able to get close to the cursed true god's remains. Chapter 1837, Black Armor, 3, No Way. Little White Tiger instantly rejected her. With narrowed eyes, Yi Qingtang lifted Little Heavenly Demon up. Almost immediately, Little Heavenly Demon opened its mouth and revealed rows of sharp teeth, looking at Little White Tiger hungrily. All of Little White Tiger's fur stood on end. Fuck. Get the hell away from me. Little Heavenly Demon had been coveting its flesh for a long time. Sigh. I don't mean to make things difficult for you, but if we don't destroy the remains of the cursed true god, none of us can leave this place. You can also see that this little thing here is starving. If we're really going to be stuck here, you know that Little Heavenly Demon will stay with me and protect me. But it seems to be interested in you, Yi Qingtang sighed, behaving as though she was in a difficult position too. How could Little White Tiger not know that Little Heavenly Demon wanted to eat its flesh? It had been on its toes for too long to count. You. Please give me some time to consider, the corners of Little White Tiger's mouth twitched. Actually, Little White Tiger wasn't worried about being stuck in the mystic realm since it could live long enough. It was more worried about Little Heavenly Demon, since Little Heavenly Demon would eventually grow up. Since Little Heavenly Demon was still young, Yi Qingtang could still coax it for now. But what would happen when it grew up and Yi Qingtang couldn't do anything about it? By that time, it would be much harder to coax. Little White Tiger wasn't confident about fighting against a grown Heavenly Demon. Alright, you can take your time. I really don't want to make things difficult for you, Yi Qingtang said earnestly. Fuck, this was her idea of not wanting to make things difficult. As Little White Tiger grit its teeth while contemplating, it looked at Little Heavenly Demon's indiscreet gaze, it couldn't help but feel a chill run down its spine. If it had goosebumps, it would surely have run all over its body. No wonder humans had a saying, only women and small-minded men are hard to deal with. It was definitely true. Again, little white tiger eyed the black armor. It started calculating the risks and after a while, it finally said, "I'm not sure whether I can really lure him away, but he seems to not have any consciousness, only protecting the cursed true god according to its instincts. As you said earlier, it stopped once we moved away. We can give it a go," Yi Qingtang replied. Of course she wasn't willing to gamble with little white tiger's life. With a huge sigh, little white tiger could only concede. What choice did it have? Soon enough, Yi Qingtang started to lure the black armor away from the cursed true god. But the moment they got close, the black armor would start attacking them. After numerous tries, they identified the region that the black armor protected. However, little white tiger's reasoning was correct. As long as they left the forbidden region, the black armor would stop attacking them and wouldn't chase after them. After some further contemplation, Yi Qingtang had another idea. Since the black armor is here to protect the cemetery of the true gods, what if we attack the cursed true god's remains? That will make him feel that our existence will threaten the cursed true god and he will never allow that kind of danger in the cemetery of the true gods. So you're saying that I should attack the cursed true god's remains? Little white tiger was stunned. Yi Qingtang nodded. Little white tiger's expression changed and they began discussing in earnest about the change in strategy. The final decision was for little white tiger to retreat to a safe distance away and spew fire at the cursed true god's remains. As for Yi Qingtang, her focus was to hide her breath until after the black armor was chasing after little white tiger. It was crucial that she wasn't discovered so she could work at destroying the cursed true god's remains after the black armor was lured away. Chapter 1838, The Fury of the True God, 1, That's the armor of the heavenly demons. Do you really think you'll be able to conceal yourself completely in front of him? It was clear that little white tiger was skeptical. I have my ways. Although Yi Qingtang seemed confident, little white tiger had no idea what she had in mind. In the end, it could only follow along if they were to leave this mystic realm. Little white tiger quickly brought Yi Qingtang and little heavenly demon away to a safer distance and put Jiang Xiaobai and the other unconscious two somewhere outside the cemetery of the true gods. Originally, Yi Qingtang wanted little white tiger to take little heavenly demon along with it just in case, but how could little white tiger feel safe with something that wanted to eat it? For all it knew, the black armor wasn't going to do any harm to it at all. It couldn't say the same for little heavenly demon. That greedy thing was always staring at it like it was a delicious morsel waiting to be cooked. It's a heavenly demon. As long as it doesn't attack the bones of the cursed true god, the armor probably won't attack it, little white tiger said. Even though little heavenly demon was still young, it was a heavenly demon after all, and was the strongest out of the three of them. Instead of worrying about it, shouldn't you worry about whether your plan will work? You only have one chance. Even if I can lure it away successfully, we're not going to have a second chance if you don't manage to destroy the bones of the cursed true god this time. Yi Qingtang knew this as well. She threw little white tiger a look. It was time. With a sigh, little white tiger looked at the huge bones of the cursed true god in the distance, then opened its mouth and rushed towards the bones with flames around it. The moment it attacked the bones of the cursed true god, the black armor which had been standing there quietly, suddenly jolted. A red glow appeared in its empty eyes. It was clear that the attack on the bones of the cursed true god had angered the black armor. In an instant, the black armor rushed straight towards little white tiger. All of the hairs on little white tiger's back stood on end and it immediately fled. It was about to remind Yi Qingtang to conceal herself properly but suddenly realized that Yi Qingtang who had been beside it had vanished. What was going on? Although little white tiger was shocked at her disappearance, it didn't dare pause for another second. It quickly went along with their plans and ran towards the border of the cemetery of the true gods. It seemed the black armor was able to sense that little white tiger had attacked the bones of the cursed true god. As if attracted by an unknown force, it rushed straight towards little white tiger. The two figures vanished suddenly from the cemetery of the true gods. The moment the black armor vanished, twisted space suddenly appeared in the void. In the next second, Yi Qingtang dropped down from the twisted space and straight onto the mass of contorted undead beneath her. It was impossible for Yi Qingtang to conceal her breath from the heavenly demon, but the deity ocean within her could twist space. The moment little white tiger attacked the bones of the cemetery of the true gods, Yi Qingtang had activated the deity ocean and crossed through to the other dimensional space. Once she had entered it, her breath naturally disappeared from the cemetery of the true gods. When Yi Qingtang looked around, she realized that little white tiger and the black armor had already vanished from her sight. Yes. Her plan had worked. But it was too early to celebrate and she didn't dare get distracted. She had no idea when the black armor would reappear. Chapter 1839, The Fury of the True God, 2, There was no time to waste. Without further ado, Yi Qingtang rushed straight towards the huge figure of the cursed true god. As she landed on the bones of the cursed true god, Yi Qingtang felt immense pressure crushing her from all sides as a familiar song started playing beside her ear. Thump, thump. Yi Qingtang's heart sped up and she lifted her eyes to scan around her subconsciously. But the cursed true god was nowhere to be seen. It was as though the song was coming right from her heart. A loud crack suddenly sounded from behind the cursed true god. As Yi Qingtang lifted her eyes to look, she saw a pair of gray wings growing from the back of the cursed true god. What was going on? A sense of dread rose from within Yi Qingtang. Instinctively, she concentrated all her energy and constructed a huge sword of black flames which she swung directly down at the bones of the cursed true god. There was no time to think. This was her only chance. As her sword swung towards the bones, the cursed true god suddenly opened her mouth and let out a soul-piercing howl. The moment the howl spread through the cemetery, Yi Qingtang felt as though her body was being ripped apart. Blood started spurting from her eyes, nose, and mouth. The song in her heart gradually became more intense, inciting deep-rooted insanity that was filled with bitter resentment. The sense of dread in Yi Qingtang's heart soared. Even though the black armor had been lured away by little white tiger, the cursed true god's overwhelming resentment still remained in her body. This was from the true god's anger. The blood spurting from her mouth seemed to aggravate the undead below her and they let out heart-wrenching groans of anguish. Their bodies twisted as they crawled upwards, as though trying to crawl out of the ground. Lowly humans, the cursed true god's voice sounded out. You betrayed your god. You traitors, you're just like him, all traitors. And the only thing that awaits traitors, is death. The cursed true god's voice was filled with malicious contempt. Yi Qingtang had not expected the cursed true god's resentment to appear now. She wanted to escape but it was too late. The cursed true god's red eyes were already fixated on Yi Qingtang. Unwittingly, she felt a force grab her. Ah! Crushed within the grasp of the force, she was lifted into the air. Every inch of her bones hurt so badly that it made her scalp numb. While little white tiger was luring the black armor away, it suddenly heard an earth-shattering howl. The black armor which had been chasing after it suddenly paused as it heard the sound. As though he had sensed something, he quickly flew back towards the cursed true god. Sensing something had gone terribly wrong, little white tiger pelted back as quickly as it could to warn Yi Qingtang. It never expected to see the awoken cursed true god holding Yi Qingtang midair. Its heart rose to its throat in an instant. The pain was unbearable and Yi Qingtang wanted to use the twisted space to escape, but the moment she tried to activate the deity ocean, the pressure around her increased. It hurt so much. It was so painful and an endless stream of blood came from Yi Qingtang's mouth. Chapter 1840, Truth, 1, The scene in front of its eyes made little white tiger freeze. It wanted to move forward and save Yi Qingtang, but with the cursed true god's pressure over the entire cemetery of the true gods, it couldn't go against the god's fury. Only death can pay for your sins. The cursed true god's voice was heard above all, and she shot a beam of red light at Yi Qingtang with her eyes. That was it. Yi Qingtang's heart sank. But even before the beam of red light reached her, a small figure suddenly appeared in front of her, taking the fatal blow from the cursed true god for her. Little heavenly demon. Yi Qingtang's eyes widened in shock as she looked at the little figure who had taken the cursed true god's devastating attack for her. The red beam of light surrounded little heavenly demon and small cracks started forming on its body. Don't bother about me. Leave. Yi Qingtang felt suffocated. Little heavenly demon was no longer as obedient as it used to be. The moment the red light surrounded its tiny body, it turned its head around, trying hard to open its eyes as wide as possible to look at Yi Qingtang. The next moment, with a loud blow, it exploded. It had reached its limits. In absorbing all of the destructive forces from the cursed true god, it had resulted in an immense buildup of energy. The resulting explosion threw Yi Qingtang onto the ground. At the same time, little heavenly demon's tiny body collapsed into a tiny heap. Yi Qingtang couldn't care less about her pain. She rushed towards little heavenly demon and held on to it frantically. Heavenly demon, humans, betrayers. You all must die. The cursed true gods was still in a fury, and the red light in her eyes became even brighter. Not seeming to notice, Yi Qingtang held little heavenly demon in her arms and looked at it. Its eyes were closed and she couldn't help but feel sorry for it. Her chest hurt, feeling as though someone had cut her flesh and lit it on fire. Little white tiger was dumbfounded, but its gaze remained on the black armor. The black armor seemed to not have any intentions of attacking them for now. Wake up! Wake up! Yi Qingtang tried to wake little heavenly demon up, but it still didn't open its eyes. It was rapidly losing its vitality, even its originally warm body was gradually losing warmth and turning cold. No! It couldn't be like this. Right when the little heavenly demon was disappearing, cracks suddenly started appearing on the black armor's body. What was happening? Before little white tiger could hazard a guess, huge cracks suddenly appeared on the black armor as it shattered, collapsing onto the ground. At that exact moment, little heavenly demon's body suddenly left Yi Qingtang's arms and flew up towards the void. While it was flying upwards, little heavenly demon's body suddenly exploded. Beams of light shot out from the little heavenly demon's body. In that instant, the scene before Yi Qingtang's eyes had become an illusion. It was a chaotic scene but also felt really familiar to Yi Qingtang. It was a few 100,000 years ago when the primordial humans worked with the heavenly demon to launch an attack on the true god. Yi Qingtang had seen it before in the shrine. But this time, it was different. In her illusion, the heavenly demon named Tu Fu seemed to be confined in a secluded underground prison. That time, he had defeated the primordial humans who guarded him and escaped. Chapter 1841, Truth. Tu Fu arrived at the temple and the once resplendent inner palace was completely destroyed. Long abandoned, it only contained the shattered remnants of its former glory. Like a madman, he flew all everywhere, searching for the familiar figure in the temple, but to no avail. I never betrayed you once, I've been searching for you all along. After everything we've been through, I'm still late. I'm sorry, I didn't keep my promise. I didn't stay by your side and protect you in your times of need. I'm sorry, Tu Fu's voice could be heard in the illusion. He searched every single corner on the battlefield, but he never found the cursed true god. When he finally went back to the temple to search for one last hope, he found out. The one he loved was already dead. Gone. All that was left of her was a consciousness that was filled with hatred. In the secret chamber of the temple, the cursed true god's remaining consciousness went out of control and Tu Fu was heavily injured. It was at that exact moment that he realized that the one he loved was already consumed by hatred. He gave up the option to leave and used the last vestiges of his life to inscribe an incantation on the wall for the heavenly demons. The moment the array was completed, his body was torn into pieces. If she was no longer here, why should he even continue living? The one he needed was no longer here. She was gone. Since he wasn't able to fulfill his promises when they were both alive, he would stay by her side forever once he died. 2 Fuss powers. A part of it became a protective power that seeped into the black armor, protecting the cursed true god's remains forever. Another part of it became a newly born little heavenly demon that would search for her illusion. These illusionary images flashed past Yi Qingtang and the cursed true god's eyes. Slowly, these hidden secrets had become unraveled. Yi Qingtang was stunned. She recalled that she had seen the mysterious incantation in the temple. Back then, she had no idea what it was, but now, she finally understood. Tu Fu had never betrayed the cursed true god. He had been searching for her all along. Then when she was gone he was using his life to protect her. Even when she had already become the sinister cursed true god. After all, she was the only one he had ever loved. Even after the illusion faded away, Yi Qingtang couldn't muster the energy to pull herself together. Never could she have imagined that Tu Fu had such deep love for the cursed true god. He never once betrayed her. Just like how the cursed true god was willing to give up her true god status to be with him, he chose death to protect her forever. This was his form of redeeming himself, for not being able to save her. These misunderstandings changed the once blissful and benevolent true god to become the cursed true god that was consumed with hatred. Yi Qingtang subconsciously lifted her head. Was it possible for the cursed true god's remaining consciousness to see all of this? The moment she looked up, she was stunned. The remains suddenly disappeared, and all that was left behind was a beautiful figure standing there. This beautiful woman slowly lifted her head, looking at the radiant light in the sky. The corners of her lips quirked up as tears trickled down the corners of her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? Why?" Her voice was choked in sorrow. Over these 100,000 years, she had been filled with hatred. But she had no idea that during these years, he had been by her side, protecting her all along. Seeing the shattered pieces of black armor on the ground before her, the cursed true god's eyes were filled with despair. Chapter 1842, Truth, 3. Back then, she remembered how she used to touch his armor, running her fingers over the dark ridges that were filled with the warmth from his body. But why? Why did she only remember that familiar black armor only now? Now they had well and truly missed each other. The cursed true god picked up every piece of the shattered armor, cherishing it dearly. Once it was in her hands, her body started to fade, shattering into translucent specks that slowly disappeared in front of their eyes. There were sounds of clattering. Before she completely disappeared, the pieces of black armor dropped onto the ground. At the same time, the clamor from the undead seemed to fall to a muted state, as the bodies suddenly stopped moving and stiffened, filling the destroyed land with a deafening silence. "Quick, go and destroy the cursed true god's remains. Her resentment has disappeared." Little White Tiger quickly reacted. Yi Qingtang was slightly stunned. Lifting her eyes, she saw that a female skeleton lay at the position where the remains of cursed true god was previously. As Yi Qingtang walked over, a complicated feeling washed over her. The cursed true god's resentment was due to the betrayal of humans, but Tu Fu's supposed betrayal maximized it. When the misunderstanding was resolved, exacerbated by the sacrifice of Tu Fu's life, she could finally let her resentment go. Who was ultimately at fault? Yi Qingtang mused as she looked down at the cursed true god's remains. Suddenly she went down on knee, bowing towards the cursed true god's remains. After all, the primordial humans were the ones who betrayed their creator. Since the cursed true god was part of the gods, how could she not have any resentment? Being a human, entering this mystic realm and having to suffer from the strength of the curse, Yi Qingtang was a victim. However, The true gods that descended a couple 100,000 years ago were also victims. Yi Qingtang never believed in gods, but she truly admired the heartfelt love between the cursed true god and heavenly demon, Tu Fu. Stretching out her palm, Yi Qingtang summoned the black flames and started burning the remains of the cursed true god. As the remains of the cursed true god continued to burn, the undead on the ground started recovering their human state. The huge crack on the ground started mending and the undead masses finally recovered their freedom. But that freedom wasn't true freedom. They were alive, but they could never leave this mystic realm. Although the cursed true god had disappeared, the remnants of her life force were still left behind in the mystic realm. The only difference now was that they had the option of death. No longer were they forced into the endless, torturous limbo between life and death. Yi Qingtang watched as the remains of the cursed true god burned into ashes. She silently transferred the ashes into a container, collecting the shattered pieces of Tu Fu's armor and buried it in the cemetery of the true gods. No one could determine who was right or wrong. Everyone had different circumstances and experiences. It is never black or white, right or wrong. Taking in a deep breath, Yi Qingtang felt an inexplicable feeling from the deity ocean, a subtle change passing throughout her body. Her heart palpitated. She instantly took little white tiger with her, wanting to take the three together with her. However, when Yi Qingtang looked at the cemetery of the true gods, feeling extremely stifled. Though the remains of the cursed true god had been successfully destroyed, that little glutton would never come back. She didn't even get to collect its corpse. Little heavenly demon was an evolution from Tu Fu's remaining life force, but for Yi Qingtang, it was her unique little heavenly demon. However, there was nothing she could do. Yi Qingtang lowered her eyes. She could finally leave this place. How many others would never be able to leave this mystic realm? As Yi Qingtang mulled over those thoughts, the deity ocean in her body could somehow sense that she was going to leave. The dimensional door suddenly opened. This time, the distortion of the space-time continuum was much more stable. Yi Qingtang froze. Could this be the reason why the deity ocean kept her from leaving previously? Was it because of the force from the cursed true god's resentment? Yi Qingtang didn't dare continue thinking about it. She hurriedly took little white tiger and the three others with her as they leaped into the dimensional door. She also wasn't certain about whether the deity ocean would send her back here again. But at least, she had tried. After they entered the dimensional door and the door closed, many speckles of light appeared above the void of the cemetery of the true gods. The speckles gathered and formed into a tiny, black figure. Chapter 1843, Crossdresser. 1. Yi Qingtang felt the world spin and by the time she opened her eyes, everything was different. The cemetery of the true gods had disappeared and a quiet forest replaced it. The oppressive aura surrounding Yi Qingtang also vanished and the powers in her body slowly recovered to their normal levels. Have we finally gotten out of the mystic realm? Yi Qingtang scanned her surroundings. She wasn't certain whether she had indeed left the mystic realm or not. What if she was still in another part of it? She stopped herself from acting rashly and stood on the spot with little white tiger and the three unconscious bodies. She wouldn't be surprised if they were going to be sent back again. But even after a while of waiting, Yi Qingtang still didn't feel any signs of being pulled away at all and was perplexed. Was she really out of the mystic realm? Suddenly, she heard a moan coming from little white tiger's back. Jiang Shaobai finally woke up. His face was slightly pale and he seemed really pitiful. The moment he opened his eyes, a sharp look flashed across his eyes, but when he lifted his head to look at Yi Qingtang, the look instantly vanished. Sister Qing. Jiang Shaobai was both surprised and elated to see Yi Qingtang, a wide smile appearing on his face. Seeing that Jiang Shaobai had woken up, Yi Qingtang heaved a huge sigh of relief. When Jiang Shaobai and the others were unconscious previously, Yi Qingtang couldn't help but worry that they would never wake up. Now it seemed. As long as they left the mystic realm, they would recover consciousness. Sister Qing, why are you here? Where are we? Jiang Shaobai was feeling dizzy and his last memory was of the monster's attack after everyone lost touch with each other. He continued trying to find his escape after that and fell into a huge hole. He had no idea what happened after that. Yi Qingtang glanced at him. Even though his face was slightly pale, judging from his steady breathing, she could tell that he had already recovered. She scoffed at him, her lips curled up into a sneer. Jiang Shaobai froze when he noticed Yi Qingtang's cold attitude. He frowned, showing a painful expression. Sister Qing, my entire body hurts. Am I going to die? This fellow is still putting up an act. Yi Qingtang crossed her arms as she replied, I've taken a good look at your body, you're completely fine. Jiang Shaobai hadn't figured out what she had meant. Little White Tiger wasn't in the mood to carry this burden who's already awake. It shook its body so that all three of them would get down. With that, Jiang Shaobai fell on his bum and the clothes wrapped around his body started unraveling and he was instantly naked. When the cold wind blew, Jiang Shaobai instantly became sober. He looked at his naked self before his eyes riveted on Yi Qingtang. What the fuck, where were his clothes? Jiang Shaobai's smile stiffened. Back when Yi Qingtang saw him bathing, he could still argue that it was because he wasn't fully grown up and developed yet. But now, Yi Qingtang had seen him fully naked. Even if he wasn't fully grown, anyone would be able to differentiate what a female should have and should not have. Chapter 1844, Crossdresser, 2, Sister Qing, please listen to my explanation. Jiang Shaobai looked at Yi Qingtang aggrievedly. Yi Qingtang leaned against a branch, crossing her arms as she looked at Jiang Shaobai calmly. I'm listening. She sounded calm and collected, but when Jiang Shaobai had goosebumps all over as he grabbed the pieces of cloth to cover himself as much as he could. Sister Qing, do you know the saying born at the wrong time? Jiang Shaobai carefully continued, I was supposed to be a girl, was this how born at the right time was supposed to be used? The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips twitched slightly. Sister Qing, even though I'm like this, I'm actually a shy girl inside. Jiang Shaobai tried his best to blink innocently, trying to convince Yi Qingtang that even though he had a male physique, he was really a girl inside. You're really extremely shy. I see. She punctuated each word with a jab at his chest. She had never met anyone this shameless. If Jiang Shaobao really was a shy girl, why would he stick so closely to her once he saw her? When she thought about how pretended to be a woman in front of her, Yi Qingtang couldn't help but feel like beating him up. She always let him have his way all because he's a young girl. If she had known that he was a chap, she would have kicked him far away. Sister Qing, don't praise me like that. I'll feel really shy. Jiang Shaobai lowered his head, behaving coy. Praise? At that moment, all Yi Qingtang wanted to do was give him a kick in the face. It was only then Yi Qingtang finally recalled that when Jiang Yisheng and the others saw Jiang Shaobai, they had complicated expressions on their faces. Even a young man like Jiang Qi didn't avoid Jiang Shaobai whenever Jiang Shaobai held his arm. It must be that everyone in the Jiang family knew of Jiang Shaobai's gender, except herself. Ugh! She only had herself to blame, she was too naive and had not realized. Put on your clothes properly. Yi Qingtang had to take a deep breath to stop herself from strangling him to death. I'll take your young age into account and forget about it this time. If you're any older and still dare to dress up a female, you'd better get the hell out, otherwise people would take you for a pervert. Right after Yi Qingtang finished her words, Mu Feirua, who had just woken up, was utterly confused. Dressing as a female. Pervert? Mu Feirua was stunned, but he didn't have much of an expression on his face. He thought that his identity hadn't been exposed yet, but it was only till he saw that he only had a layer of outerwear covering his body and was totally naked inside, all the color drained from his face. What the fuck, where are his clothes? Mu Feirua, you're a man too. When Jiang Shaobai saw Mu Feirua get up, he noticed that Mu Feirua had the same fetish as him and he quickly dragged Mu Feirua down with him. Mu Feirua, he was wrong, he shouldn't have woken up. Ah, I know. The pervert that Sister Qing is talking about, those who are not young anymore but still cross-dress, it's you. Jiang Shaobai had no reservations, he completely pulled Mu Feirua under the bus. Yi Qingtang, she didn't mean that. Mu Feiruo's face flushed red. He quietly pulled the outerwear together to cover his flat chest. Sister Qing, don't worry. I will never learn from him, I won't become a pervert. If you don't like this, I can change back to dressing as a male. Jiang Shaobai said with an obedient expression on his face. His words completely embarrassed Mu Feirua, making Mu Feirua feel like he was stripped naked in front of them. Chapter 1845, Crossdresser, 3. Jiang Shaobai's gender wasn't a secret within the ancient clans at all. Everyone knew that he was a male, but he had a unique personality and liked dressing as a female, so no one bothered about him. As for Mu Feirua, he grew up with a female identity in the Mu family and everyone else saw him as a female. Moreover, he was first place in the previous beauty rankings. He was a goddess who could only be appreciated from far away in Jiang Yisheng's eyes. Stop talking nonsense. Me, young Master Mu, is low-key. Yi Qingtang tried her best to cover for Mu Feirua. Mu Feirua, he didn't want to say anything else. Please just let him fall unconscious and die. The biggest tragedy in life was suffering such a huge blow after coming back from the dead. He wasn't prepared for it at all, why did he have to experience such brutality? Even if he wasn't a tender flower, they should give him basic respect at least. Whatever Sister Qing says. Jiang Shaobai was extremely pleased that Yi Qingtang was distracted. With his eyes crinkling into a smile, he put on a coat and appeared beside Yi Qingtang. He stretched his hand out, wanting to cling onto Yi Qingtang's arm as he always used to. However, this time, Yi Qingtang slapped his hand away. Sister Qing, you've changed. You no longer love me. Jiang Shaobai covered his face with his hands, almost tearing as he looked at Yi Qingtang aggrievedly. How can you be sexist? Apologies, I favor girls over boys, Yi Qingtang replied honestly. Jiang Shaobai was furious. Without an avenue to vent his frustrations, Jiang Shaobai's eyes landed on Mu Feirua, who was trying his best to cover his body up. His eyes then riveted on Bailey Shi, who lay on the ground without moving at all. He then kicked Bailey Zai's leg. Stop pretending. You woke up long ago, why are you still lying there? Having been kicked a few times, Bailey Shi was forced to sit up. With a stiff expression on his usually cold face, he was at a loss. He hadn't expected himself to hear such exciting news right when he woke up. Bailey Shi wasn't interested in the affairs of others, so he didn't know Jiang Shaobai's gender and only saw him as a young, capable lady from the Jiang family. But as for Mu Feirua, looking at his past competitor, Bailey Shi felt really complicated inside. Mu Feirua felt even more complicated inside. Coughs. Where are we now? Bailey Shi pretended that nothing had just happened. He only remembered himself dropping into a huge hole and nothing else after that. Everyone present had powers and they could feel that the surroundings and aura now was completely different from that of the mystic realm previously. Yi Qingtang didn't intend to hide anything. She told them about her meeting them, destroying the remains of the cursed true god, as well as traveling through time. But she hid the purpose of the deity ocean from them, only explaining that because the cursed true god's remains had been destroyed, they ended up in this safe place. After Jiang Shaobai and the others heard Yi Qingtang's words, they couldn't help but feel scared inside. They hadn't expected themselves to be consumed by the forces of the mystic realm and become mutant fire demons. Though Yi Qingtang hadn't gone into the nitty-gritty details, they could already tell that it was extremely dangerous from her description. 10 of them stepped into the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm together, and yet only the 4 of them came out alive. The arrogant Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua knew that if not for Yi Qingtang, they probably would have died in the mystic realm. Chapter 1846, Immortal Footsteps Mystic Realm. 1. They were unconscious when the remains of the cursed true god were destroyed. If Yi Qingtang hadn't taken them out of the mystic realm, they would have been trapped in there forever. After all, Yi Qingtang had nothing to do with them, other than the fact that they had entered the mystic realm at the same time. In contrast, Jiang Xiaobai and Yi Qingtang were both from the Jiang family, so it wasn't surprising that Yi Qingtang saved Jiang Xiaobai. It was partly thanks to Jiang Xiaobai that Yi Qingtang saved them too. No words can express my gratitude towards you. I'll remember this forever. Bailey Shi suddenly got up and spoke. He was a man of few words. This was his first time saying so many words to someone other than his younger sister. Mu Ferua also got up to voice his thanks. Yi Qingtang's gaze shifted. Coughs. Don't you need to find some clothes to put on? Only then Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua noticed that the outerwear had ripped open when they got up. They exposed every part of their body, even those that they shouldn't. The 2 astonishing geniuses' faces flushed red. They panicked and quickly took some clothes out from the space ring and put them on. As for Jiang Xiaobai, he was rather calm compared to them. He slowly put on his clothes, wanting to move towards Yi Qingtang again, but she only glared at him in response. All he could do was to back off. Jiang Xiaobai wasn't happy and he looked at Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua. Isn't it too late to be feeling embarrassed? Both of you have already exposed yourselves when you were unconscious earlier, Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua. They really had the urge to sew his mouth together. Yi Qingtang thought the same. Wasn't Jiang Xiaobai too mean? My pet helped cover your bodies with the outerwear. Yi Qingtang told a white lie so they wouldn't die of embarrassment. It was only after they heard this that Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua breathed a sigh of relief. Jiang Xiaobai was just about to say something mean again, but before he started, Yi Qingtang shot a glare in his direction. Actually, how I wish Sister Qing would personally put it on for me, Jiang Xiaobai said. Haha, Yi Qingtang didn't want to bother with him. Mu Ferua had always dressed as a female, and so the clothes in the space ring were all female clothing. But now that his gender had been revealed, if he were to put on female clothing again, he couldn't help but recall Yi Qingtang calling those people perverts earlier on. He instantly put the clothes back into the space ring, borrowing a set of clothing from Bailey Shi as he changed into it. After putting on the clothes, a trio of handsome men were facing Yi Qingtang. Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua were extremely good-looking. Bailey Shi had a cold aura like that of a young master, while Mu Ferua had a pair of attractive almond-shaped eyes. His beauty was understated when dressed as a female, but after putting on male clothing. Somehow, Yi Qingtang felt that his charisma could not be contained. Yi Qingtang was intelligent. She kept her thoughts to herself and didn't mention anything that would make Mu Ferua feel uncomfortable. This doesn't seem to be an island. Mu Ferua seemed to be more normal after putting on clothes. He scanned the surroundings, realizing that everything was unfamiliar to him. The aura here is similar to the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm we entered the other time, just that the interior is completely different, Bailey Shi said. They had entered the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm before, and even though the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm would change every single time, the overall feeling would still be somewhat similar. Chapter 1847, Immortal Footsteps Mystic Realm, 2, but at least it felt more normal than the mystic realm with the cursed true god in it. Does this mean that we're still in the mystic realm? We've only switched from the creepy mystic realm to this mystic realm that we were originally supposed to enter. Jiang Xiaobai touched his chin as he said. Mu Ferua and Bailey Shi nodded in agreement. Yi Qingtang thought about it too. They previously entered the cursed mystic realm because of the deity ocean, but since the deity ocean sent them out, they must have returned to the original place they were originally meant to be in. However, no one knew what the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm would be like. Though the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm is mysterious and different every single time, it seems safer this time. Let's just be careful and walk around to see if we can spot anything. There shouldn't be much of a problem, Muferua said. The differences in the attitudes between the comparisons were clearly different this time. They weren't cooperative with each other the previous time, but after experiencing such an ordeal and receiving help from Yi Qingtang, they wouldn't hide anything about the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm from her anymore. Muferuo's suggestion was accepted by the rest and they moved around, exploring the Immortal Footsteps mystic realm. Muferua. Jiang Shaobai suddenly looked at Muferua as he walked. Muferua looked at him perplexedly. A smile appeared on Jiang Shaobai's face, revealing his pearly white teeth. I have a friend who likes you very much. He says that you're his only goddess. With absolutely no shame at all, Jiang Shaobai enunciated the word goddess clearly. Muferuo's face instantly darkened. He quickened his footsteps, pretending he hadn't heard anything. How did the Jiang family even raise such a mean person? Ugh! Facepalm. Yi Qingtang could sense that the forces in her body were slightly different from the previous time. When Yi Qingtang entered the cursed mystic realm, she was only at the early stage of the fourth heaven of the heavenly venerate realm, later advancing to the mid-stage. But just then, she felt the forces in her body had advanced to the early stage of heavenly venerate fifth heaven. What was going on? Looking at the others, Yi Qingtang decided to test the waters. But they replied that nothing had changed for them. They were in the exact state as when they first came. Yi Qingtang was perplexed. But somehow, she figured out something. According to Jiang Shaobai and the others' descriptions of the cursed mystic realm, they fell into a hole just right after entering the mystic realm. They soon lost consciousness and ran into Yi Qingtang. As for Yi Qingtang, she made use of every single second in the mystic realm to cultivate. Though the mystic realm was filled with dangers and her spirit energy depleted rapidly, the effects of her cultivation were impressive. Moreover, the mystic realm was filled with spirit energy. Yi Qingtang had experienced countless battles and built her skills along the way. Since they had been unconscious, they naturally wouldn't be able to compare with her. Was this considered a blessing in disguise? Yi Qingtang heaved a sigh of relief. At least she hadn't wasted time and energy. Look, there's light there. After walking for some time, Jiang Shaobai suddenly lifted his hand, pointing up ahead. Everyone looked over. There was a brightly lit area not too far away. Chapter 1848, Immortal Footsteps Mystic Realm, 3, they rushed towards the area with lights. It was late at night and a town appeared before them. There weren't any walls and a series of lights were hung upon the enormous trees, lighting up the entire place. They could hear the sound of crowds before they even entered the area. The town was bustling with activity, with many gathering around the tree. They didn't dare get closer. All they did was to find a huge tree, hiding behind it as they observed the scene. They were stunned when they saw the figures. What is that? Catfish? Jiang Shaobai's eyes widened in shock as he saw their round bodies. There wasn't a single human-like figure in the town. All they saw were round bodies with big mouths, seemingly catfish, with 2 whiskers. These beings had big stomachs, walking around with their short legs. Is that a catfish demon? I have never seen this species before. Jiang Shaobai was filled with confusion. The central mainland had many unique races, but he hadn't seen such a species before. Yi Qingtang's gaze riveted on Little White Tiger. Little White Tiger instantly shook its head. Although it had a broad range of knowledge, there were countless unique races all over the world. It couldn't possibly recognize each and every one. Well, at least little white tiger was certain that this being couldn't be found in the central mainland, not to say the first domain. They were really curious about what species it was. Suddenly, a huge bump appeared on the ground and the next moment, a weird creature resembling a catfish suddenly popped out of it. When it stood up, it shook the soil on its body away. They were all shocked. They didn't feel any unfamiliar aura at all. Their bodies tensed in preparation for action, but the fat catfish didn't even bother with them. It just walked towards the crowded town. It didn't seem to have any intentions of attacking them at all. They looked at it and took a step forward. "Please hold on." Muferua called out the fat catfish. The fat catfish stopped. It didn't even have a neck and could only wobble over. The moment it turned around, it looked at Muferua with black, beady eyes. "May I know, where is this?" Yi Qingtang asked. The fat catfish sized them up, realizing that they weren't the same kind of being. It remained calm, not showing any aggressive intentions at all. "You're new here?" They nodded. "You want to know the rules here?" The fat catfish rubbed its palms together and touched its rotund chin. "Sorry to trouble you," Yi Qingtang said politely. This fat catfish was far more polite compared to the creatures in the cursed mystic realm. Except for the fact that it was kind of ugly. The fat catfish opened up its mouth, showing a mouthful of sharp teeth as it said, "Let's have a bet. If you win, I'll tell you everything." What? They were caught at a loss. A bet? What was going on? This catfish even knew how to bet. Chapter 1849, Bet 1, Are you up for it? If not, I'm going to leave. Don't waste my time. The fat catfish shook its whiskers impatiently. Yi Qingtang's face stiffened for a moment, then she asked, "How do you want to bet?" The fat catfish suddenly opened its mouth and its stomach churned. Puff! Without further ado, it spat out 2 dice cups from the insides of its stomach. "I shall not make things difficult for you since you're new. Let's just bet with dice," the fat catfish said as it patted its stomach. As Yi Qingtang looked at the dice cup, she saw that it was completely coated with the fat catfish's saliva. Turning around, she looked at Jiang Xiaobai and the others with a complicated expression on her face. "Anyone know how to do it?" Yi Qingtang asked. Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua instantly shook their heads. They had invested all their time and energy into cultivation. Moreover, they were gifted and one of the best among their peers. The elders would never have taught them how to gamble. Although they had seen other people in the clan doing it, they had never participated. Bailey Shi and Mu Ferua were prodigies in terms of cultivation, but in terms of goofing around, they definitely had no skills in this kind of play at all. Seeing the two shake their heads, Yi Qingtang's eyes riveted on Jiang Xiaobai. He was the wildest and most playful out of the few. In response, Jiang Xiaobai only blinked innocently at her. "Sister Qing, I'm still young." No matter how playful he was, at his age, he would never have the chance to gamble under the supervision of the Jiang family's elders. Damn it! None of them knew how to gamble. Bunch of useless things. Yi Qingtang sighed, looking at the fat catfish with difficulty written all over her face. Bailey Shi and the others also had complicated expressions. They had never anticipated such a ridiculous demand to appear in this mystic realm. Everyone was now stuck in the mystic realm and was completely clueless about the rules. With their previous experience in the cursed mystic realm, it would be best if they could learn about the rules as soon as possible. Coughs. How about I give it a go? Yi Qingtang sounded unconfident. The fat catfish had seen everything and its eyes lit up. Have you come to a decision yet? Are you up for it? Yi Qingtang exchanged glances with the others and looked at the fat catfish, showing some hesitation before she finally nodded. "I'll try." The fat catfish touched its whiskers as it said, "Great, you can give it a go. However, since we're making a bet here, what's your stake?" The fat catfish was delighted to have run into some newcomers. Everyone knew that newcomers were just like fat sheep ready to be butchered. Thank the heavens for its good luck today. One look and it could tell that they had no experience at all. Steak. What would be considered a steak? Money? When Muferua heard her, he instantly took some tails out of the space ring. The fat catfish didn't bother to even look at the tails, dismissing him with a wave of its fins. Who cares about money? Forget it, since you don't know the rules here, it'll be nice and remind you. Tails aren't worth anything here. If you want to make a bet, you can use Dharma artifacts or weapons, things of that sort. The fat catfish's beady eyes landed on Yi Qingtang's wrist as it spoke. Chapter 1850, Bet, 2, I'll take into account that you're new here and I won't make things difficult for you. I'll just take your bangle as a stake. Once the fat catfish said that, everyone's gazes riveted on Yi Qingtang's wrist. Before everyone could look closer, she quickly put her hand down, covering her wrist with her long sleeves. Little White Tiger was also stunned. It lifted its head, looking at Yi Qingtang's hand. From Little White Tiger's angle, Yi Qingtang's wrist was empty. What bangle? That fat catfish had bad eyesight. Hold on. Little White Tiger was suddenly reminded of something. Yi Qingtang had a bangle on her wrist, it was the 9 Souls ring from the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang somehow ended up wearing it, but it had become invisible ever since she put on the 9 Souls ring. No one could see it. If the fat catfish hadn't mentioned it, Little White Tiger would have completely forgotten about it. So how could this fat catfish see the 9 Souls ring? Little White Tiger was surprised and confused at the same time. Yi Qingtang also felt the same way as Little White Tiger. When the fat catfish mentioned the bangle, she subconsciously hit her wrist. If not, when Bailey Shi and the others saw that there wasn't anything on her wrist, it would only invite trouble for her. However, how could the fat catfish see the 9 Souls ring? She recalled that as the fat catfish spoke, its eyes traveled over her wrist inconspicuously. She hadn't thought about the 9 Souls ring at all, but now that the fat catfish mentioned it, she realized that this fellow must have spotted the 9 Souls ring and came in her direction deliberately. If not, why would he have so much patience to waste time with some newcomers? Bailey Shi and the others hadn't seen the bangle around her wrist. But noticing that she treasured it so much, it must be something important to her. How about I use this as a stake? Bailey Shi felt indebted to Yi Qingtang, and since none of them knew how to gamble, their chances of winning were very low. He took a Dharma artifact out of his space ring and brought it in front of the fat catfish. The Dharma artifact had a gold aura and was of a high grade. The corners of the fat catfish's mouth twitched, contempt written all over its face. I'm not interested in that. All I want is her bangle. If you're not going to bet with it, I'll leave right away. Bailey's eyes face darkened. He offered one of the best Dharma artifacts from the Bailey family and it could easily be used as a stake. However, this fat catfish didn't even spare it a glance. His Dharma artifact couldn't compare with Yi Qingtang's bangle. Actually, the fat catfish had laid its eyes on the 9 Souls ring from the very start. No matter what Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua offered, it wouldn't budge. They couldn't help but feel that this fat catfish was making things difficult for them on purpose. Whatever. Even if we don't make a bet, we can figure it out by ourselves. I don't believe that we can't do it. Mu Feiruo's face darkened and seemed to be getting more frustrated. Wait, I'll do it, Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke up. Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua were stunned. Miss Yi, you don't need to force yourself into it, this fellow is obviously experienced. If you make a bet with it, our chances are close to 0, Bailey Shi said. It is taking advantage of us, it's trying to cheat you of your bangle. Jiang Xiaobai also spoke up. Who cares for that bangle? I'm only doing this because I think that you're pitiful, the fat catfish said. It's okay, I'll bet with you. If you win, I'll give you the bangle, and if you lose, you have to tell us the rules. It seemed that Yi Qingtang had already made up her mind. Chapter 1851, Bet, 3, Bailey Shi and the others felt bad when Yi Qingtang made the decision. On the other hand, the fat catfish was delighted. Okay, hurry up then. The fat catfish stuck its big and long tongue out right away and it touched the ground. Taking one dice cup up with its tongue, it shook it around with apparent ease. Let's see who has the bigger number. I'm warning you up front, don't even think of trying to use your powers to cheat. My senses are far more sensitive than any of you here. The fat catfish's words made Bailey Shi and the others' hearts sink. Though they didn't know how to gamble, their hearing was extraordinary and they could hear the numbers of the dice. They had originally planned to change the numbers with their powers after Yi Qingtang was done shaking the dice cup, but now the fat catfish was indeed experienced. Soon, the fat catfish's flexible tongue was done shaking and he slammed the dice cup on the ground. Bailey Shi and the others' faces instantly darkened. They could hear that there were 2 5s and 1 6 in the dice cup. It's your turn. The fat catfish placed the dice cup on the ground and signaled to Yi Qingtang. When Yi Qingtang saw the dice cup that was covered in the fat catfish's saliva, she hesitated before finally taking it. Moving quickly, she shook the cup vigorously, to the point that no one could see clearly. Everyone was surprised when they saw Yi Qingtang's moves. Miss Yi knows how to gamble. When the fat catfish saw her moves, its whiskers unconsciously quivered. She's an amateur. No matter how fanciful her moves are, what matters is the number in the dice cup. What's the point in all these useless moves? The fat catfish's words made them pause. They just realized that the way Yi Qingtang shook the dice cup was identical to the fat catfish. She seemed to be imitating the fat catfish. However, she wouldn't be able to replicate the fat catfish's score. The tiny sliver of hope they just had instantly vanished. Bang! Yi Qingtang slammed the dice cup on the ground. Bailey Shi and the others' hearts sank once they heard it. It was 2 2s and 1 3. It was true. What was the point? The outcome was obvious. Even the fat catfish could hear it. The corners of its mouth quirked up into a smile as it opened the cup. It was 2 5s and 1 6 inside. Mu Ferua took a deep breath, looking at Yi Qingtang in concern. 2 5s and 1 6. You're formidable. Yi Qingtang counted and opened her mouth in shock. Ha, it's your turn. You have to admit to your loss. If not, I have my ways of dealing with you, the fat catfish threatened. I said that I'll try. I didn't say that this round is counted. Yi Qingtang sounded guilty as she spoke. The fat catfish was even more pleased when he noticed her guilty tone. Who said that you can try? This is it, open it up now. But, Yi Qingtang was hesitant. The fat catfish started getting impatient. Open it up now, if you win, I'll tell you the rules immediately. Yi Qingtang didn't appear confident at all. She looked at the fat catfish, before looking at the others and finally uncovering the dice. The fat catfish couldn't hide its grin. It couldn't wait for the bangle to become its possession. Chapter 1852, One More Round, 1. When Yi Qingtang opened the dice cup, the fat catfish was dumbfounded. Its mouth fell open in shock and its whiskers quivered. There were 2 6s and 1 5 in her dice cup. It was 1 point bigger than the fat catfish's number. The fat catfish's face turned charcoal black. Oh. Seems like I have a bigger number. I was really worried for a moment. Yi Qingtang looked at the dice cup and patted her chest in relief. Everyone was shocked. What was going on? They heard Yi Qingtang's dice cup just now, it was small numbers. How could it become like this? The fat catfish's whiskers curled up in anger. It glared at Yi Qingtang furiously. It didn't anticipate Yi Qingtang's number to be bigger than its number. Also, it observed Yi Qingtang carefully just now. It hadn't noticed Yi Qingtang use any powers. How could the number change? Bailey Shi and the others were also confused. But no matter what, Yi Qingtang had won. They heaved a sigh of relief. Can you tell us the rules now? Yi Qingtang smiled as she asked. Though the fat catfish was still confused, it kept its promise and told them the rules. This mystic realm is just like a huge casino. The fat catfishes here did not go by clans. They merely live in this mystic realm and gambled all day. In fact, there was nothing gambling couldn't solve in this mystic realm. If there was, then they could always gamble as well. The fat catfishes didn't need to pay for meals and water, they only needed to gamble for it. What do you bet? Mu Ferua asked out of curiosity. The fat catfish scanned them, spitting out a diamond-shaped gemstone. The gemstone was entirely orange and it glistened as the light hit it, even more eye-catching than any diamond. We use these spirit stones as stakes. Since you're human and don't have spirit stones, you can use your Dharma artifacts instead. The fat catfish was still indignant about losing. The fat catfishes here loved gambling, they had to gamble no matter what, and that was the only thing they did every day. Hence, they were used to admitting their losses. If anyone dared to back out, no one would gamble with them anymore. To the fat catfish, it would die from not being able to gambling. What? The little white tiger's head hurt as it listened. This was its first time meeting such a strange being. Yi Qingtang was observant and found out that the spirit stone that the fat catfish just spat out had strong spirit energy. It felt just like the spirit energy was compressed inside the spirit stone. Could the spirit energy inside the spirit stones be used for their cultivation? They spent some time understanding the rules and prepared to walk towards where the fat catfishes were gathered. From the description of this fat catfish, they already found out that none of them were interested in attacking outsiders. As long as no one provoked the fat catfish, they wouldn't be bothered and are extremely welcoming of outsiders to join them in gambling. When the fat catfish noticed that they wanted to leave, it still felt indignant about losing and said, "Hold on. You want to back out?" Jiang Xiaobai looked at the fat catfish. The fat catfish cleared its throat. "I want to have another round with you." Its words were meant for Yi Qingtang. Chapter 1853, One More Round, 2, Air. I don't think so. I already know what I needed to know. Yi Qingtang shook her head. The fat catfish wasn't willing to just give up like that. I only told you about the rules just now. Don't you want to know about the dangers? It was clear that the fat catfish was taking advantage of the fact that they were new and were completely clueless about the place. Damn it, why didn't you say it just now? You hid it from us on purpose. Jiang Xiaobai rolled his sleeves up, preparing to punch the fat catfish. The fat catfish replied, "You only mentioned the rules and I told you all of that. The dangers aren't part of the stakes. If we just have one more round, I'll tell you everything." Yi Qingtang hesitated. "It's fine, well, be extra careful. It was pure luck just now. This bangle is very important to me." Yi Qingtang even pretended to touch her wrist carefully. The fat catfish also knew that Yi Qingtang won because of luck just now. But it was exactly for this reason it felt even more indignant. Moreover, it really wanted Yi Qingtang's bangle. The fat catfish took out the spirit stone it spat out just now. "How about this, we'll have another round. If you win, I'll not only tell you the dangers of this place, I'll also give you this spirit stone. You're new here and definitely haven't seen this. I've met some humans before, this spirit stone will be extremely useful for cultivation. It's precious and rare for us too." Once Yi Qingtang heard that the spirit stones could help in cultivation, her eyes lit up. She had already suspected that the spirit energy inside the spirit stones could be absorbed. Now the fat catfish just confirmed her suspicions. But even so, Yi Qingtang still frowned. We have 4 people here, how can one spirit stone be enough? The corners of the fat catfish's mouth twitched. This lass really thought that she would be able to win because of pure luck again. The fat catfish wasn't convinced that Yi Qingtang had such good luck. With its gambling skills, it wouldn't be a problem winning. Okay, I'll give you 4, 5. Yi Qingtang suddenly spoke, pointing at the little white tiger. Include it too. The fat catfish's face turned dark, but it quickly got a grip over itself. Since she was this greedy, the fat catfish was determined to make her lose it all. Miss Yi, please don't be rash. We've already learned the important stuff, there's no need for you to gamble with it again, Mu Feirua advised. He could tell that this fat catfish was pretty skillful. Yi Qingtang had won just now, but she wouldn't be that lucky this time. There's only one chance left. I'm asking for another round only because I haven't had enough yet. I'll be frank with you, it's impossible for you to get the spirit stones unless you make a bet with other catfishes. However, they may not necessarily be interested in your stakes. Without the spirit stones, there's no way you can avoid danger. The fat catfish pretended to be offering them serious advice. Stop trying to scare us into it. Bailey, she frowned. Why would I? Yi Qingtang appeared hesitant, but she finally spoke up. Let's have one more round. Chapter 1854, One More Round, 3. The fat catfish was extremely excited to hear her decision. Neither Bailey Shi nor the others couldn't stop Yi Qingtang from going for it. Picking up the dice cup on the ground with one hand, Yi Qingtang let her other hand glide past her long hair. The fat catfish was deadly serious and its beady eyes gleamed. It also picked up the dice cup and shook it around vigorously. The loud sounds of dice shaking around made it difficult for Bailey Shi and the rest to decipher anything. Bam! The fat catfish slammed the dice cup on the floor and revealed a smirk. It knew that Bailey Shi and the rest could hear the numbers, so this time, it prevented them from hearing it. The fat catfish then looked towards Yi Qingtang. It's your turn. Yi Qingtang looked at the dice cup in her hand before she looked at the fat catfish. Suddenly, Yi Qingtang shook the cup vigorously, to the point where her hands might just fly and detach from her body. She slammed the dice cup on the ground. It seemed like she was imitating the fat catfish once again. She shook really quickly, even the fat catfish couldn't decipher the numbers. But even if the fat catfish couldn't decipher from hearing it, it didn't have anything to worry about. It was confident about its number this time. It would be nearly impossible for Yi Qingtang to win. Open it. The fat catfish opened the dice cup. There were 2 6s and 1 5 inside. The fat catfish started laughing. Bailey Shi and the others lost all hope. This was Yi Qingtang's previous score, it was almost a perfect number. Unless Yi Qingtang was able to get 3 6s, she would definitely lose. But 3 6s. Without using their powers, how could these amateurs even achieve that? Yi Qingtang was taken aback once she saw the fat catfish's number. The fat catfish was extremely pleased with itself. It lifted its head arrogantly as it looked at Yi Qingtang. It's your turn. At that moment, Bailey Shi and the others' gazes also landed on Yi Qingtang. With pursed lips, Yi Qingtang slowly opened the dice cup. When the first dice appeared, Bailey Shi and the others gasped, closing their eyes in despair. It was a 1. Ha, lass, admit defeat now. Give me your bangle. Once the fat catfish saw the dice with 1 point, it was delighted. Yi Qingtang definitely had no hopes, she had lost. Yi Qingtang's hand froze in midair. Once the fat catfish saw her reaction, it walked over and grabbed Yi Qingtang's hand. Stop struggling. You only have 1 point now, you've lost for sure. Hand me the bangle now, I've still got to. The fat catfish pulled Yi Qingtang's hand and the remaining dice appeared. Before Yi Qingtang even understood what happened, the fat catfish was dumbfounded. 3 ones? How is this even possible? The fat catfish staggered backward. Yi Qingtang was not happy with her score, looking at the dice in disgruntlement. I've lost, I only have 3 points. But the fat catfish's eyes were able to pop out. When Bailey Shi and the others heard Yi Qingtang's score, they opened their eyes and were elated once they saw the dice. Miss Yi, you didn't lose. You won. This is 3 leopards. Mu Ferua exclaimed. Although he didn't know how to gamble, had witnessed others in the act before. He knew that with 3 exact dice scores, it was considered the biggest number possible. Chapter 1855, Trap, 1, really? I won. Yi Qingtang acted surprised, as if she didn't know the rules at all. The fat catfish's face turned a pitch black, like the underside of a burnt pot. How could this be? Originally the fat catfish thought that it had run into a bunch of vulnerable fat sheep, yet he hadn't anticipated them to have such good luck. The fat catfish felt really shitty inside. In contrast, Bailey Shi and the others were elated. They hadn't expected Yi Qingtang to have such good luck. She even managed to strike it big. Yi Qingtang felt somewhat bad as she said, I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with this. It's my first time playing. Does that mean I've won? Once Yi Qingtang said that, the fat catfish almost spat out blood. It was her first time. So was it because she had very good luck or that he had very bad luck? The fat catfish felt like dying, but it could only hold in its emotions and nod. Yes, you've won. Yi Qingtang smiled at him. Then our stakes. The fat catfish's chest hurt, but it could only bear with the pain and hand the 5 spirit stones over to Yi Qingtang. Right before it placed the spirit stones down on her palm, it lifted its head and asked, Is this really your first time? Yi Qingtang nodded. I swear, this is my first time playing it, this lifetime. The fat catfish felt a twinge in its chest. It unwillingly placed the spirit stones down and prepared to leave with a broken heart. Hold on, other than the spirit stones, aren't you also supposed to tell us about the dangers here? Yi Qingtang hadn't forgotten about the other conditions of the bet. The fat catfish paused, turning back to look at Yi Qingtang. It's very dangerous here during the day. If you want to stay alive, find a place and hide in the daytime. It's very dangerous. Yi Qingtang was startled. The fat catfish continued speaking, yes. Those who head outside in the daytime would die for no known reason. That's why we only come out at night, the fat catfishes only went outside at night. It wasn't a personal preference, but rather a habit they had to get accustomed to. It was because scary monsters would appear in the daytime and several fat catfish had died for no known reason. None of them could survive. What kind of monster is it? Yi Qingtang asked. The fat catfish shook its head. I don't know. All I know is that it's really scary. No one would come back alive when they head out in the daytime. We can't even find their bodies. Remember I told you that the spirit stones are very useful? I wasn't lying. There aren't many places to hide, and even if you climb a tree and stay up there, you can't avoid the monster's attack. We usually build our own holes underground. As for y'all, the only way out would be to gather enough spirit stones and go to the Crystal Palace for their protection. Crystal Palace? Yi Qingtang and the others were confused. The fat catfish lifted its stubby hand, pointing towards the brightly lit gambling town. At the very end of it was a colorful palace. That's Fu Qiu's territory. Up till this point, the fat catfish couldn't help but raise the corners of its mouth in disdain. In order to hide from the dangers in the daytime, the fat catfishes would build underground holes in the daytime and only come out at night. Chapter 1856, Trap, 2, Fu Qiu was part of the Fat Catfish clan. However, Fu Qiu had an eccentric personality and completely different hobbies from the other fat catfishes. All fat catfishes in this mystic realm would solve all problems with gambling, but Fu Qiu is an exception. Not only did it build the only crystal palace on the ground surface to hide from the monsters, but it was also the only fat catfish to depend on trade instead of gambling. As long as you gather enough spirit stones, you can exchange them for a day's protection at Fu Qiu's place. It's still early now, you have time, the fat catfish said its piece and left. Yi Qingtang and the others were shocked by the fat catfish's words. This seemingly safe mystic realm had such dangers. Is the fat catfish trustworthy? Mu Feirua asked cautiously. It should be fine. Though the fat catfish is greedy, it stood by its word. Yi Qingtang had figured out that the fat catfishes were only obsessed with gambling, but they were quite accountable. It said that we need to gather enough spirit stones before we can go to the Crystal Palace to seek protection. Does this mean that we should also do to the gambling town and try our luck? Mu Feirua asked. Yi Qingtang nodded. She then distributed the spirit stones she won from the fat catfish among them. They froze for a moment before they held their hands up, rejecting her. You won these spirit stones, how can we take them? The spirit stones could be exchanged for protection, but Yi Qingtang was generous and gave it to them. They were extremely touched by this move. They had already received too much from her, how could they take the spirit stones? The fat catfishes here seem to be interested in these spirit stones. Since we're going to be spending some time here, you will need it to win more spirit stones. Just take it. At most, you can return it to me when you win more spirit stones in the future, Yi Qingtang smiled as she said. Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua didn't seem like bad people. Since they had all come into an unfamiliar environment, they should help each other out. It definitely beat having to fight battles. Despite her words, Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua were still hesitant. They exchanged glances before they finally spoke. Miss Yi, thank you for your kind intentions. However, we're not familiar with gambling and we're afraid that we will lose these spirit stones if we're not careful enough. We're not as lucky as Miss Yi, so what if I tell you that you can have such good luck too? The corners of Yi Qingtang's lips raised into a cunning smile. What? Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua were shocked. Yi Qingtang didn't say much. She stretched her hand out to show them. It was dark, but Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua could see a thin strand of hair around Yi Qingtang's finger. The hair was extremely thin and if one didn't observe carefully, it was barely noticeable in the dark. Miss Yi, you, Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua were perplexed. Yi Qingtang let out a sigh. These two were too honest. They probably focused all their attention on cultivation and didn't think of anything else other than it, let alone scheming tactics of gambling. Right at that moment, Yi Qingtang picked up a piece of stone that was about the size of a dice and wrapped the strand of hair around it. Chapter 1857, Trap, 3. When Yi Qingtang pulled the strand of hair, the dices started moving too. At that moment, they finally figured everything out. You used a strand of hair to change the score. Bailey's eyes widened in shock. Yi Qingtang nodded. Yes, so, you can go ahead and just try it out with these spirit stones. Their expressions turned complicated. When did Yi Qingtang come up with this idea? How could they not have realized anything? At that moment, they finally realized that the fat catfish suffered a miserable loss and it didn't even know it had been duped. Yi Qingtang had clearly been playing dumb. The fat catfish had fixated its attention on whether they used spirit energy. No one knew that Yi Qingtang turned the tide using a strand of hair. No wonder she agreed to the bet with the fat catfish. She was already prepared. Miss Yi is indeed intelligent. Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua were genuinely impressed with Yi Qingtang for coming up with such an ingenious idea in such a short period of time. She certainly wasn't the newcomer she appeared to be. She was very experienced. Yi Qingtang smiled without saying anything. Technically, she hadn't lied to the fat catfish earlier on. It was true that she hadn't gambled before this lifetime. But that didn't mean that she hadn't done it in her previous lifetime. She had lived 300 years in her previous life and was constantly forced to flee for her life, hiding in different places throughout the years. She had witnessed much more than young masters like Mu Feirua, who only focused on cultivation. With Yi Qingtang's trick, Bailey Shi and Mu Feirua finally took the spirit stones from Yi Qingtang. They thought to themselves that they would return the winnings to Yi Qingtang later. As for Jiang Xiaobai, he looked at Yi Qingtang with a wide smile on his face. He was the only one who wasn't worried about her at all. Sister Qing is indeed formidable. Yi Qingtang raised her brows as she looked at Jiang Xiaobai's hand that was about to approach her. She instantly hid it away. With Yi Qingtang's pointers, Bailey Shi and the rest finally had some confidence and they walked towards the gambling town together. Groups of fat catfishes gathered in the gambling town. They all had similar appearances, the only difference was in the color and print of their bodies. Some of the fat catfishes had larger physiques, with big and round stomachs, but others were of a smaller physique. Yi Qingtang had previously noticed that the fat catfish they encountered took everything out from its stomach, so they must have an enormous storage space in their stomachs. They acted separately, wanting to win big. Only Little White Tiger followed Yi Qingtang. It was odd how the fat catfishes weren't particularly interested in their arrival, only throwing over a couple of glances before they focused on the bets again. Recalling the previous fat catfish's words, there seemed to be quite a number of humans visiting this mystic realm, so they probably weren't surprised by the arrival of humans at all. Yi Qingtang looked around the various groups of fat catfishes before she finally spotted the fattest fat catfish in the room. The fat catfish stood beside a huge tree, with other fat catfishes surrounding it. They were all intensely invested in some strange bets. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.